Call the meeting to order at 5:32. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. States to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Present. Here.
Present.
Present. Okay, again, thank you everybody for attending on short notice. I know this has been a confusing and trying week or two. I totally understand that. This is a special meeting of the board where I'm going to ask the board to go into executive session to talk about some potential legal issues that we have to talk about in closed session. I'm anticipating that that will probably take, hopefully like a half hour, 45 minutes. Okay. You're welcome to sit in this room and wait for us because we'll have to go in another room, go grab coffee, text each other when you come back. And then whatever we discuss and what I can share with you, I will come back and share with the teachers and parents that are here. Again, we don't take these discussions lightly. And like I said, I'm very conscious of yourself, your children, the programs, the teachers, all that stuff. All right. So I'm going to ask for, I don't think anybody signed up to address the board. Tomorrow, again, the meeting is still on for tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, which is open session for everybody to talk to us and, have a more open dialogue. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss legal matters. Motion, Trustee Bluthart. Second, Trustee McNeil. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So there'll be no further business. So we won't be voting on anything tonight, but I will be coming back here to talk to you. Okay. So sorry. Hopefully, like I said, half hour, 45 minutes. Go out, have somebody just text you that. I'll give you a little time to get back in there. Okay. All right. We're going to executive session and I'll be back soon.
Gonna keep the live feeds going, but I'm just gonna get it so that people can see if they want to access it. Yeah, someone.
Good. Yeah. Okay. All right. Miss Jenny. And call the meeting back to Bird 6:25. Thank you for coming back. Uh, again, now that we've met in executive session, I can share more information with you now that the trustees know this. This has nothing to do with any discussion regarding the Lindenhurst Park District or any of those matters. What we have found out through, looking to improve our programs through the village administration, through the village attorneys, is that there has been some information that may have been known to the Parks Department and not the teachers, not any board members here, not any village administrators, that there are certain requirements to run a preschool in the state of Illinois, all under the guise of DCFS. And so as we had gone through and looked at our programs and how we have operated over the years, I would say in 2017 to 2019, there were some laws passed by DCFS that affected preschools and camps throughout the state of Illinois. In 2019, the Village of Antioch applied for an exemption for, it appeared to be trying to apply for an exemption for the camp, summer camp, and the preschool. In 2019, an exemption was issued for the summer camp. And the caveat is one of the big things you hear about DCFS is there's a big distinction between children that are school age, meaning 5 or 6 and above in kindergarten, and those that are considered preschool. The DCFS will require anybody that's running a preschool to have a preschool license. Okay, so this is all in the past. That license expired in 2021. Ever since that time, we have discovered correspondence that we as a village needed this license and have never had this preschool license, not only for the facility itself, but for background checks. What was the requirement for asking the village chair? What was the requirement for the directors and that?
There's certifications, there's a master's level.
Sure. Yes. So I found out about this on Sunday evening on an email from the legal department. Immediately I contacted the village attorney, and it came from the law firm, the attorneys, the administrator, and said, well, now that we know this, we can't change the past. We need to start talking to DCFS and see what we can do. And their response is you need to follow the law. And that process to follow the law is an extensive one. It's not checking one box. It's getting all types of certifications for the buildings, getting all types of certifications for the staff, all of which will take a lot of time. So we asked them, what is our option if we continue operating? And they're said, well, then we open an investigation, and that investigation will come out there and check the licenses and the facilities. And since you don't have one, we'll send you a cease and desist letter, at which time, if you don't follow that letter, then we file it with the state's attorney, which is what none of us want to hear. So us as a board have to come in here and do what's obviously legal, which we have an obligation, especially since some of us are have other licenses, but also right for the community and the safety. So as a board, we have discussed all, we're discussing options. We've discussed options with the village of Lindenhurst, the high school, moving other programs to the village. But we as a board cannot see a path forward in operating as is legally. Okay. And not only legally, like criminal charges could be brought against any director on here based on this. And I will say that nobody in this room um, and nobody that's employed at the village that I know of knew this until this was uncovered on Sunday. So I guess I turn it over maybe to council. I don't know what to say about this, but I don't know how we continue to operate and get you the resources that you can help, make you as a family whole. I can't tell you like as a parent, somebody who kids went through camp grant, been every camp grant graduation. My girlfriend's kids stood in line every day, and the teachers and the families, the kids, like that's what is the worst part about this. I don't care about the other stuff, the politics, the election, but we are put in a very bad situation. And unfortunately, everyone in this room is in a bad situation where we're at. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Jimmy, about this.
There's not much to say other than the fact that there is an aspect of this that does have legal consequences in so much that as a non-home rule unit, we have to follow the law. We don't have we cannot deviate from the law once we know what the law is. The second part is, and it's very clear that if we violate the laws relative to this, the consequence would be criminal sanctions against all the officers of the corporation. So this is an imminent legal threat. There's also risk with regards to non-compliance, right? There's a reason that there's compliance for all of these very skilled professionals that come in and do this. And I know this is an emotional thing for everyone. And for that, I am sorry. I will tell you that we are working on solutions to try to mitigate whatever we can do. I know that gives very small solace for everyone, but it has been everything that we worked on for the last 3 days. I mean, we'll be able to talk.
And I'm going to take comments. So here are the things that I can promise you. If you're a teacher for our village departments, financially, you will, whatever happens, you will be made whole. We will make sure that you are paid for the full year. If you're a parent that has paid for camps and schools, you will be made whole. You will get your money back. And if there isn't a company locally, whether it's Lindenhurst, the high school, Kinder Care, somebody that takes us over, if there's a difference in the price, we will make that up to you as a village. I have that promise to you. But I'm giving this terrible situation on my hands, which was unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to anybody. And like I said, I'm here to listen to suggestions on anything we can do. We will listen to it as a board. But as DCFS has told us, we don't really have much of a path forward. So I don't know what to do, but we weren't going to hide, we want to be transparent. The minute I heard about this, we called this executive meeting because, we have to tell the board, we have to tell our legal counsel, we have to tell you, God forbid something happened to a kid and we found out that way. I mean, I can't even imagine. And again, I know our teachers are the best, top notch. Like I said, my whole family went through this program. So I'm here to listen to any suggestions, any way we can help you, anything we can do to make this, I guess we're not gonna make it any less painless, as painless as possible for the residents. Go ahead.
I just want to make one input. I do know how hard this is because I got grandkids in preschool and we have to hustle all the time. DCFS is very specific in us closing down. They have not really given us a choice unless we want to be criminally investigated, criminally charged. And that's unacceptable to me. And if something happened to a kid, as they explained to us, the village insurance would not cover it. So we have problems with that. One thing I want to say is the village administrator, police chief, whatever you want to call him, has been working on this around the clock for the last 3 days. And if he hadn't been, DCFS would have already shut us down. So, I want to thank him for his hard work on this. But, and I am so sorry this happened. And just,
Yeah, it's shocking is the only thing I could, really, only word, heartbreaking is another word that comes to mind. It's even hard for me to look you guys in the face that we're in this situation. It really is. And I honestly, I'm not speechless very often, but like when I saw this, I was speechless. Like we should not be in this situation having this conversation. Like I as a mayor have a weekly staff meeting and ask for any issues or any questions. Not once was any of this licensing stuff brought up or that we didn't have a license, even though it's clear that people knew in departments that we didn't have this type of a license. Um, we have a Parks Board Commission that meets monthly, where any issues like this are supposed to be discussed and resolved. And unfortunately, we're all caught in the middle of this terrible situation. This doesn't make the situation any better. And we're not gonna, like I said, I know it's a dirty word right now, but I did speak with Linda Hurst, Park Director, and they would be willing to step in. And obviously our facility is not certified, but they'd be willing to try and open additional classrooms this year. And then whatever you've paid, with the village would make up. If there's a difference in price, we would make that. So no difference in what you would pay now. Secondly, he said if whatever happens, they would work on getting our places certified because as a village, we'd have to have a full regular daycare license. They can get an exemption as a park district, which is totally different. All this stuff happened in 2017, 18, 19, and then 2023, they made the law even tougher, and 2024 even tougher. And you could Google this tonight, go on ChatGPT. I mean, that's where once I started learning about this, learned all this information. I've also talked to the high school. I actually ran into the superintendent today and talked to him. They do a preschool program for the high school. He was supposed to send me their bandwidth on how, and it's not an all day thing either. It's kind of like our camp plan that they would be willing to help us out. I want to help you guys out. I'm not trying to put it, like I said, the kids and the bond, the teachers and the families is first and foremost the most, important to me. I know the village attorney has made another call, which I have no information on, for a possible third option to operate maybe in town.
We're reaching out to some contacts that we have that have private operators that would essentially assume these obligations for that. So I know it doesn't make it any better, and I am sorry about that, but we are honestly turning over every stone that we can to try to make this as to get a landing on this.
Yeah, and I don't know how to do this properly. There's no playbook on this. Okay, so obviously, if we have to, since we have to cease operations as we currently operate them by law, I want to make sure there's an opportunity for the kids and the teachers, whatever, to get together and at least say goodbye. If that's yes, that is a definite. Okay, whatever we could do to help the teachers that we have get the proper certifications. Again, through no fault of theirs. Okay, they were never given the guidance of what needed to happen. And again, I'm the mayor. I'll take the blame for anything. Okay, but as soon as I found this out, we have to take action. This was never on our radar. If anybody can see what. No, I mean this is the closure of this. The closure of it was yes, and I'm telling you right now, it was not by us, but by people who in the know held this information to themselves. And I have written proof of that. I have written proof of that people who ran departments who are no longer here knew about this at least as early as 2022 and definitely in 2023. Okay, and that legal process will probably play out on an individual level. That's all I can say about that, right? Yeah. But yeah, this literally, I'll tell you, Sunday night at 6 o'clock, I got an email from the law firm laying out these facts, laying out the laws, and I was stunned. And next Monday, I came in, I said, well, we got to find out what our obligations are, and called this meeting immediately because God forbid, once we know we're running an illegal preschool, and God forbid something happens to somebody, all these things you're seeing on Facebook about teachers and communication and stuff, none of this stuff was done maliciously or to punish anybody. Okay, there are reasons behind this. Okay, Jeff Gutchow.
Could I just say that the board found out this afternoon?
Yeah, Jeff
We found
Gutjob
out the
was
second.
taking a beating and has been a dedicated public servant in this town, as public servant for years as a police chief. And only came in to fill in a role at a much reduced rate to help us out to get here, is taking a beating on this when he should be, okay?
But the problem is that
Sure.
we would have someone, that position as full-time, maybe 14 months ago, I
Or-
would
well,
have, or whenever it came up, whenever it happened, I don't know the logistics of all that. But I'm saying, I feel like this should have all been recognized, whoever was doing that job as well, maybe would have had the time or resources or whatever. to
So-
uncover
I got
it.
this.
This is like-
Okay.
So 14 months ago, we had a full-time that had his position.
Yeah,
We didn't even have insurance for Camp Grant.
why didn't he know that?
The former administrator, explain that to me,
I don't know.
because he's got no skin in the game. He lived up in Wisconsin. He
All right,
didn't care.
well, let's not, yeah, I just want,
We
okay.
complained, he didn't tell us.
It's not like-
no, listen, I understand. So let me just, okay, as a mayor and as a group, and as, there's layers of, okay, so I'm the elected head of the organization. The village administrator runs the organization on a day-to-day. Below that are different department heads. There's a public works department head, a police chief, a parks director, and under all of those directors, they're there because they're supposed to run their department, bring the information to us if there's something we need to know. But when that is intentionally not done, that's the problem, okay?
Like a yearly
Yeah.
audit, to make sure that the licenses are appropriate?
That's a great question.
Audits, from my understanding, working at, and I was a director designee at a preschool.
Sure.
We did get audited yearly. There's checks and balances for that, and if you don't reply or they come to the facility, they go through background checks, they
Sure.
go through, and I mean, it's like that's why I
And
guess.
I don't know if it's because we're a governmental entity that they didn't, but I guess I'll let the village tree, like a park district, like they have they're exempt and it's very rare. We even saw some towns, like I think Island Lake was one of them, that had a very similar program. And a lot of towns at that point exited because they made the standards so much more difficult to comply with.
Which they did, and I
Yeah,
do know that,
yeah.
but that's what I'm confused about is if they had checked in a year ago and you're saying that the person who was in the role did not like comply, DCFS would have and I'm not saying,
Yeah.
listen, I don't
Yeah, sure.
have any issue with that, that is, I wanna thank you for what you've done because I know you've done a lot of work. The issue is that the two important roles where it just seems like something has failed.
Sure, oh yeah, absolutely.
Why didn't it get escalated to the next person?
I can say-
or DCFS would have-
I can say this from the records that I have seen to date, and again, this is all very new. Nobody from the director or trustee level knew. No correspondence from DCFS for some reason ever that I have seen. Again, part of the reason, again, with some decisions we had to make regarding, again, I guess it's widely used, these other apps or whatever that don't keep records. Like, we don't even have a record of some of the stuff that may have been going back and forth because there were no emails given to our which we didn't know, to our preschool teachers, which they should have an email at a minimum. Jeff, you might have some more insight into this this year.
Correct, ma'am, to address your specific point as to how DCFS did come out to an inspection. All evidence points to the simple fact they did not know we were running a preschool. As the mayor mentioned, we had an exemption letter issued in 2019 on the basis of a summer camp that was on the premise of school-age children, right? And DCFS has a very distinct line between regulations for school-age children and non-school-age children. You're probably well aware of that. So they really didn't know that we were running a preschool. They were running summer camps for school-age children, but within their records, since we never applied for an exemption, and the only engagement we had with them prior to my phone calls with them over the last couple of weeks was us, just a former director, asking the question, do we need licensing or exemption? Their answer was, you need a license, and that was the end of the communication. So, from their purposes, they consider that we've been operating an illicit preschool, but they didn't know.
And I can tell you at a board level, for me, what I've been told every year, Camp Cram's great this year. We got good sign up, everything's taken care of. We got teachers in there, everybody's ready to go. Programs, thumbs up. And,
Can I
and
just
shame
say-
on me for believing thumbs up.
I think, and there does come a point where there is no point clearly, I mean, nobody can request us to do anything that doesn't abide by the law. So
Sure.
I'm certainly not suggesting that, but I think that with all of the backlash, all of the online, all of the speculation, there is a lack of trust. And I will tell you that from sitting here last week, that I was very upset that we spent 10 minutes talking about a sign that was misplaced on a property in the town of Antioch, and not one person sitting up here asked a single question regarding what people spoke about, what people had to say. I do think that the optics maybe don't line up with what's actually going on, but we do as a community need to think about how things are presented, what we do with our marketing, what we do with our teams, how we look into things, how we check and balance things, because there is something missing and we have to be accountable for that. So
Sure.
everybody works very hard. It's not to discount that, but if we go back and we play the timeline, there are probably 100 different times that somebody could have asked, or somebody could have looked into something differently. And as far as our chief of police and village administrator, I think it's fair questions to ask that whether he was doing this town the biggest favor or not, the timeline looks questionable. It doesn't mean that he's questionable or that he's doing something
Let me ask you, in what
wrong
regard
to,
about the timeline of this question?
so here we are, you
Mhm.
got notified on Sunday.
Mhm.
We've been looking into merging with Lindenhurst since last year. Nobody was notified. The Parks Department knew nothing. There were a lot of people that you would expect to be involved in conversations. It seems strange that we were looking into something like this, and now all of a sudden DCFS shows up 3 days before this.
Couple things, so a couple things on this. Yeah, sure.
Wanted, it's not, I did what you
It
guys.
is.
Listen, I don't, do you think I trust government all the time? No, okay, like I understand it.
It's not that we are not getting the information that you're
Sure.
giving us, right? It's us with the limited information.
Sure.
And the limited communication we've had, it is purely an.
Sure,
And one thing, when you come before us and you're during the public speaking session, this is a different situation where you have to interact with you because it's very, very important.
Mhm.
But during the normal public speaking session, if you listen to what she reads, the board doesn't respond
I
because we have to
understand.
respect your inputs. Okay,
I do
so, and I'm sure, I don't know if I'm out of line to say this, but some of the information you've been receiving from certain sources may not be correct, and you may have been misled by certain sources.
And
we-
legally,
And we're working on that.
legally, we can only discuss what's on the agenda.
I
That's it.
understand, but somebody did
Sure.
ask what was happening. One of our parents did ask, are we filling these roles? It seems like we are making big decisions for the future of any parks department with roles that are empty, roles that have been filled intermittently. And we were told that the role is being interviewed for and that it's posted and we're moving forward, and it's not.
Well, let me,
posted, and we're not moving
I'm gonna, again, what if I go past what, I'm gonna tell you, so the public meeting tomorrow night was my attempt to have an open discussion about what we're trying to do, okay? I'm gonna tell you some information that you're gonna hear the repeat of tomorrow night, but when I came in here as a mayor, my job is to look at the operation, make sure we have a good operation, that our tax dollars are being used wisely, okay? When I came into the village in 2021, the first budget I received is already passed before I'm the mayor, okay? And I could see in that line item, a $500,000 deficit every year. We're losing $500,000 in our parks department, okay, which to me was absurd. Out of that $500,000, most of that relates to our programming, which means hot shots and all this stuff. We are hiring a director. We have 2 final candidates for our parks department. We are going to have a parks department. Our intention is always to operate the pool, the summer camp, and the preschool. As far as hot shots and all that other stuff, we don't do a good job with that, okay? We run some special events. Every team that is viable in Antioch is a club team. It's Antioch Youth Little League, it's Vikings, it's soccer. So, and we're trying to bring some of those things to our parks so we can spend the money on improving our parks, our facilities, okay? So there was never any intention to be like, we're done with parks altogether. Our idea was, you know, let's work with a park district that runs these programs better, has better apps, has better signups, for these processes, knows the law when something like this comes up in advance, because obviously, if anything is I guess, an argument for why we should consider this, we're sitting in the middle of it, because a park district or somebody would have known about this. We relied on directors who, you know, shame on me.
The positions have been not filled or not filled well, or whatever it is.
Sure.
So
So-
I think it's disappointing.
Sure,
It's frustrating. I do think there's some issues with the optics, and I think there's some things to
Sure.
learn from this. Absolutely.
Good.
I am not a fan of like, no, I don't think anybody wants to personally attack anything.
sure.
But as far as solutions go,
Mhm.
I feel like I have a lot of questions about what we know about. I think I would still advocate and fight to bring this program to Antioch as soon as we.
And that's not out of the question. And that's, listen, my goal is to do what's best for you, the children, the taxpayers. It's not to cut services, it's not to penalize anybody, okay? It's to make your dollars go as far and give you the best programs you can, okay? But
Help do that up front.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
optics though has been throughout this process that we're already working on a contract and we're moving things out. So that's why we are all.
Sure,
very
sure.
fired up.
I understand.
Because no one said that.
No, I understand, and I think, okay, and I take the blame for that, because as these conversations conceptually were happening with Lindenhurst, okay, I felt it was important for somebody from the village staff to let the public know that these conversations were happening. They probably should have been more detailed in retrospect and laid out. So it was just the concept, and hey, this is what we're looking at, so you don't hear it through the grapevine, but it obviously backfired because there wasn't enough detail, okay? We are hiring a parks director and having a parks department in Antioch, in the new village hall. We already have offices assigned for these people, okay? Would we like to bring, like I said, we're just gonna, nobody here, how many here ever signed up for the Hot Shots program or any of this stuff? And I have too, but they're never good, right? And that's what we're trying to get, and that's what I want to get away from. I want your kids to have more opportunities for sports and better facilities. That's our goal, okay? What's that? What do you mean not checking?
You don't have a license for your preschool program.
Well, I had a parks director that's their duty to do that, and but I understand that, but do you think, I mean, do you think,
I was in the school district,
Yeah.
we would have teaching and learning, but we also have a superintendent who keeps the director of teaching and learning in the.
understood, but like, it's a big organization, okay, and every single, again, we do an audit, this is why we have had some changeover and new eyes and things to look into this stuff, so we can make sure we are a professionally run organization. What was going on, and I hate to say it, in 1975 or 1950 Antioch is not the same in 2024. The world's changed, there's more laws and more regulations, so we have to get caught up to that stuff. And that's why the team we have and have brought in is looking at those items to make sure that happens.
So what is the plan and the timeline? We're shutting down, they're not going to school tomorrow. correct?
Well, I would like there to be a plan where they can go to school tomorrow with you guys and at least see the parents, you know, do that as much as you feel comfortable with it.
If you're saying there's a case open, like what,
So
What are you doing?
here's what's permissible by DCFS.
okay.
So obviously, we don't want to just completely pull the rug out from under you folks tonight, right? And just say, you're never gonna, kids can't see your teachers, can't say their goodbyes and right, have that sentimental moment. They will permit us to allow the kids to come to programming tomorrow. We're expecting and hoping that the teachers will show up and take advantage of the opportunity. They're professionals, I have no doubt that they will. The difference is there has to be a parent on site. We cannot, under law, physically take custody and care of those children without the license that the mayor's been speaking of. But we do plan to open tomorrow, I think, weather dependent, right? To allow kids that have parents or grandparents or other responsible adult or guardian that can accompany them to attend the programming tomorrow.
And the next day is Friday, every other day. So
Like
that would
we are
be
Fridays.
Yeah, I would say both. Yeah, yeah, we'll make accommodations. Thank you. Yeah. And we do, I will be contacting Jeff again from District 117. We will, now that we've been talking with you, send information to David, who's the director of Lindenhurst Parks, to see what, again, what options, how, depending on how many, like I said, any of you that want to go, they're trying to make accommodations for that. And then I believe the village attorney made a call to, somebody who is in Springfield regarding potentially,
Yes.
talking to see if a kinder care would want to come in here. And again, whatever the price is for these, again, I'm not saying it's the same. I know it's not, but I'm just trying to make sure, like, I know how disruptive this is with school cancellations and COVID and trying to find something for your kids and families. And then that element of the children teacher bond. I get all that. This is like the worst situation that I can imagine, but we're trying to do everything we can do given the hand that we're dealt.
What is the timeline to get it, to get all of these things done, so that we are legal in the eyes of the people?
Well,
Right, is this happening eventually, or what?
So here's the challenge. The case that's laid out and the laws that are in place, the Village of Antioch cannot run a program. And without a license, I'll make that caveat. The staffing issues at the teacher level, the easiest component to is rush, right? To make sure they have the necessary certificates, training. Some of them are very simple as far as being trained in the use of AEDs and making sure they have access to appropriate first aid kits, right? There's low hanging fruit that could be accomplished. Where we run into a challenge is that the law requires a program director to be in place full time that has a master's level education in early childhood education or other social services, plus 2 recent years of experience overseeing and managing a licensed facility. So that's the staff component, right? Those are barriers that can be overcome.
Do the 2 people that you are evaluating for that position, do they meet those requirements? Because if they don't, then we need to find somebody that does right now.
So that is just simply the staffing component.
Correct.
Right, that's under, if you guys want to look it up, that's under Rule 405 of the DCFS code. Where it gets more complex is under Rule 407 of the DCFS code. That's where it starts laying out policies, procedures, and facility requirements, right? Lays out things like you have to have a dedicated nap room, you have to have dedicated break rooms, you have to have all these different things under the Part 407 rules for a facility. And without a full gut renovation of the current buildings we have, we would never meet those standards that are established. And again, that's not a decision for me to make.
Even for 2 hours?
Are you looking under a daycare or a preschool facility?
Yeah.
Because they're 2 different things. Like someplace like kinder care following DCFS, they have to provide that, like they have to have a diaper changing table and so many, like there's so many things, but a preschool is different than a daycare because they don't nap there and they don't provide food services and things like that. So that there've been,
Or if we don't operate as a like, what are the other options? Like, we don't maybe need to be like a whole function,
Sure.
whatever they're calling.
yeah,
Yeah.
morning camp, there you go.
Or, you can sign your kids up for a class at the library, a meet and greet, or there are
Yeah.
other activities. Does it have to live?
There
in
are
a-
exemptions that relate to the number of hours of operation and the purpose, which again, like looking at all those, and like I said, finding a path to least resistance, I will have and do have the attorney looking at this. He may, I think there's a 10-hour requirement on one of the items, but again, I think that still requires the exemption. And when I asked Dave today how long that exemption might take, he said it could take like till the fall, which is a terrible answer.
But if we know these things,
Mhm.
I guess my question at this point is there an intention or desire to go through those battles to get to that point? Or are we just saying, it's too much, we don't wanna spend the money on this, so
No.
we'll just exist in Lindenhurst?
No.
You know,
I would go through anything we would need to go through to for sure, keep it open for the rest of the year, but right now I don't know what that answer is. And B, make sure the program exists still here. Like I said, yeah, so we're not throwing in the towel on that. We just don't have an answer on that right now because we have to figure out what are those options. I mean, but what I had to do is within finding this out, like let you guys know, let staff know, that I couldn't
I
avoid.
mean, I understand there's only been so many hours to do things, but, I think trying to find the silver
said,
lining that it could be a
like,
functional program that does last.
Yeah,
And
and I didn't catch your name. I mean, you know a lot about this, okay? You know a lot, like I'm telling him, like, you know more than a lot of us know about this because you're in that industry. Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, we are open to any suggestions, okay? Like I said, I wish I could wave a magic wand and say this is the right thing to do. We're open to any suggestions. The last thing I want to do is,
So maybe we don't need the facilities now, but are the people that work or someone that we're going to hire into this job, are they going to have the qualifications so that if we get to that point, we have someone ready to go to run a crew?
The person we're interviewing right now is not being hired as a preschool director, they're being hired as a park department.
Two separate.
They're two separate entities. Then the park
if
department.
we could find somebody tomorrow,
Park department, gentlemen, trying to
So
find
they
a
would
solution.
hire someone underneath that
yeah,
department.
if we could have somebody tomorrow come in that has these qualifications, DCS says, yeah, you can operate with this route. If it costs $100,000, it costs $100,000. We would do that, okay? So that's, you know, that's I've explored, that's crossed my mind. Again, DCFS holds the cards.
Is there, if you're stating that Lindenhurst is willing to take it
Hmm?
on, as a temporary,
Hmm?
is there any facilities in this town, such as the lower grade, that is not fully occupied all the time? We're talking, they got, what do you use, 2 classrooms?
100%. I will.
That Lindenhurst can get an exemption, if you're gonna pay them anyways, that you make a deal with Lindenhurst, you keep these teachers, they falls under Lindenhurst, you take a 2-week hiatus, let them move all their stuff into the classrooms, make a deal with the school, and do it that way.
I have a good relationship with Aaron, who's the superintendent, so I'll definitely talk to Aaron to see, you know, what and Jody Lax, I believe, is the principal of that. I'll
The schools would make
talk to-
sense that they have
Yeah.
all the
sure.
documentation.
The challenge with that is to teach early childhood education in a public school system. You also have to have the special education certifications. So in addition to an early childhood development certification, you also have to possess a special education license.
If they go into like a school building.
Correct, yeah.
The teachers, their teachers do, yes, and that's one of the challenges their district has had is finding special ed teachers are like in super high demand within the public education realm. And to teach within a public institution, you have to have that special education background as well. So it's just not as easy as just saying, take our teachers, put them over there.
What about St. Peter's Church?
It got sold. It's privately owned by a private developer.
Developers.
I mean, also, I mean, there's a
What about
Yeah. township center. I mean,
Again, that requires a license.
Correct, you still need to
Seems
be
like you
licensed.
have a roadblock at every
No, that's not, that is not accurate. We are kicking every
you're overturning every stone. It's just because he's probably done a lot of the research on, because we've been looking at like, let's overturn every stone we can, like to get this, move this forward. It's not to like, what's it?
Do any of the facilities in town that are vacant?
We, you know, I mean, honestly, all along, and again, there's groups that use it, but at this point, it's not, this is not the important part to me, but like, if we could repurpose the senior center at some point to do it, you know, that, you know, but I don't know what those, how long that takes and.
Not the important part to you?
That's not what he,
What did you just say?
I said repurposing the senior center.
He said there's groups that use the senior center currently.
Yeah.
It would, in this case, it would be more important to put kids in there, but that senior center would have to be gutted. And if you've ever seen how a government program works, gutting something.
I mean, so
I mean, honestly.
I'm looking at every facility we have for
It
possibility.
wouldn't take long to get it. Trust me.
So,
Oh, yeah, I could go in there and gut it tomorrow. What I'm saying is.
let me okay, let me just take a general poll, okay? Is anybody in here, and again, it could be no hands, anybody in here interested in that Lindenhurst path at all with the Lindenhurst Park District? And if you're not, you're not. No, say, okay, okay, what about,
It's our teachers.
okay, and again, these are just asking questions, just, yeah. Okay, sure. What about, so that probably eliminates the high school, because that's probably run by, I'm assuming that's run by, mostly students like training for
Yeah.
education.
Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously the best case scenario for, it seems to be for, again, I can't make any promises. This is just discussion. It seems like that building across the street, but again, that's got its own unique challenges, okay? So these are all things that, yeah,
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
question. Lindenhurst, are they a park rec or a park district?
they're a park district. They're a separate taxing body.
Okay, so how come Antioch's never moved forward in getting out of the park rec, getting into a park district and establishing?
Well, we have had 2 referendums that failed, and part of this program that we're talking about with Lindenhurst and an intergovernmental agreement where we keep the pools here, the summer camps here, and the preschools, was our attempt to get in, with a park district that will run our programming for that. Oh, yeah, so sports program. So yeah, it's something that's been discussed, and it's part of the reason we're in this situation, because they have these exemptions that we as a village don't have. Actually, Dave said something to me interestingly today that like some groups have like a separate line item for the parks department, even though it's the village.
Yes, that is correct. So we asked the question how some of these communities that are villages, parks and rec departments are operating their preschools with the exemption. And it's because at some point they got it approved by their taxpayers to add a line item to the tax bills to fund those operations. So like Lake Zurich, for example, has a separate line item on their tax bills for a parks and recreation department, even though it's not a park district.
Just real quickly, Hunter, just a point of order. You keep saying Dave. I don't know.
Oh,
if people
David,
here know that Dave is-
he's the director of the Lindenhurst Park District. I saw him back there.
Well, if we're talking location, I just want to throw out, I know this isn't in Antioch, but St. Pete's School closed down last year and they ran a preschool up till the spring of last year in that school. And it's empty right now, not used. Yes, it was like last year.
Okay, that's on the corner there, okay.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
All right, so, I mean, like I said, to say I'm speechless is,
I think it's just very frustrating since this is obviously been an oversight for 5 years essentially. And now we're in the middle of the 5th year of the oversight and cutting them. And I think that's the most frustrating part, that this information has been there so long before I put my first child in the program.
I was putting kids in there within the last 5 years myself. And literally, I have known about this for 48 hours. Believe me, if I would have known about this 5 years ago, we would have been sitting here 5 years ago, we wouldn't be in this situation. Yeah. They have an exemption, so there's some weird exemptions, like religious organizations, shopping malls have an exemption, park districts have an exemption. And then so those are the exemptions, and then there's the, applied for, so there's exemptions by law if you meet those certain criteria. Then there's applied for exemptions, but you have to, like I said, there's the facilities components, and then there's the operational component. Like if it was less than 10 hours and it was for a art class or something, then maybe we get the exemption, but we're not gonna get the exemption tomorrow. And again, I think maybe we don't even, I keep speaking about this, we might not be able to get the exemption because we're pre-grade school. Like we could get exemptions for kids in kindergarten and up. And maybe more, it's the kids at below the school level. Yeah.
3 and below. But, I mean, 4
5.
kids can be considered pre-K, so technically early child is, I mean, you can have a 4-year-old in a pre-K program, which some public districts have that, so technically it's like 3 and below is what, but we also don't have anything other than, we don't have, I mean, the time for twos, right? They technically are not considered a preschool.
Yeah, I think they're okay, right? 'Cause the parents are
They
there.
should be okay.
Yeah, the parent, that program is okay because the parents are there.
Well, then why can't, it would probably be somewhat inconvenient, but for the current kids, if one adult for one child was allowed to be with them, so they could at least finish this current school year.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at
Much less
mid-November.
impactful to their development.
I mean, honestly,
I mean, I do it as
we will take that feedback and we will.
I'm open to that. Listen, I'm open to that. Again, does that deal with the facility issues? Again, all this stuff we're gonna have to bounce on the DCFS rep. like who, it seems to be one lady that everybody knows, okay? You know, we will continue to work through, this is, again, between the administrator, the assistant administrator, the attorney, myself, like, since we learned, this has like been all we've been doing, and we will continue to do it, but, you know,
Well,
like I
and
said.
not to mention, I know, I have two, we have two sons.
Mhm.
My youngest right now is in the current tutorial
Sure.
program. My oldest was in the tutorial program a few years back. That class at that time, full, 20-some kids.
Sure.
Yes, to your point, the enrollment, they only have, the morning class only has 13 kids. So if you were to allow one parent and one per student, I mean, the number of bodies kind of accounts towards that, whatever the max was, which would be around 20 people in the class.
I think they're saying that they cover.
Oh, well,
On the facility parts, which, again,
Yeah, there's issues with backgrounds, there's issues with facilities, but we are taking this information in for a reason. Because if there are no bad ideas, right? So if there's something that we can get feedback on from everyone, thank you, for example, for your knowledge on this. We will take that back in, we will go through and try to come up with a solution that works in these circumstances. We were lied to, and we are having to deal with this now with you. You are having to deal with this. And we will take this information back and we will work forward to try to make that work. That's what happened. I don't know how else to put it.
And not only were we lied to, you were lied to. And you were misled. I can ask the chief, I know
I just have an
Yeah.
idea, so that our parents and children who visit you here in Antioch. You know, you brought up the Methodist Church. I don't know what kind of facilities they have, what kind of space they have, what teachers they have in place, but if there could be emerging, maybe our kids with theirs, or if that's even been thought about, just to keep the convenience of being here in
Yeah.
Antioch and keep these children.
any context, any resources, I'll take their name, we'll personally call them,
I mean, I don't know,
tomorrow.
I feel they've always sort of been our like direct competitors,
Sure.
so to speak, for the kids as far as options. But there's really nothing like what Camp Fran is, but there are, I mean, there's Prince of Peace, there are other religious private.
If we're gonna do something, I'd rather keep it as close as possible.
I
Yeah.
think that we could lead with that
Yeah.
for tomorrow
Sure.
too, that the idea of keeping people here, which, I mean, I know we're kind of talking about this potential idea with Linden Hurst. I think, I can't say that I know the right answer because a lot of us are fighting for Camp Cran and the summer camp
Sure.
specifically, but with other programs as well, I think handing operational control in any capacity over to Lindenhurst instead of just partnering with them on a like case by case basis, the more that we can share with people that the idea is to grow what we have here and keep things as close to home. And if this community of families has to figure it out in the mix while we work towards that, that's one thing, but to work towards a future for the town as a whole, I think that would be wise as far as optics and messaging.
Sure.
And I hope that that is the goal, and I know that there are obstacles and everybody's in a hard spot, and I think that that's understandable, but any options that we can do to keep our teachers and our classes together and this, for the time being, if there's somewhere we can go, would be
Sure.
first priority. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I can't make any promises, but again, that is gonna
Of
be
course.
exactly what we're trying.
Mhm.
This is kind of circling back to what you were talking before, but I never felt like I got an answer. Like, I came here expecting to talk about a Lindenhurst merger and why we should or shouldn't do this. How is this related to that? How did was the merger with Lindenhurst cause us to discover this? Like, this seems.
Correct.
As
As
you're
we,
saying, the timing of this seems very strange.
Yeah.
so as, it's not, okay, so as we are doing our due diligence and figuring out how we would blend these programs, that's when this stuff came to light, because they're a park district, they know the rules as much as she does, okay? So they start asking her questions. Okay, well, if we take this over and use this facility, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this? Again, makes the point why it's good to have the oversight of these groups that this is all they do, you know, they lobby for these laws. And that kind of started, and Jeff could maybe give a better timeline, but that started the, I guess, the unpeeling of the whole situation until we got to the documentation that we found. I don't know if, and again, tonight's meeting was an emergency basis. Tomorrow night's meeting was to talk ad nauseum about, you know, what the plan is and why, okay? And again, I'm sorry, maybe we waited too long and should have done that earlier if that caused misinformation. But again, the intention is to make services better than worse, okay?
But your honor, I don't know, I know it's bad optics and I know it's that the information got out late. But if you ask the administrator, he was informing the staff at the preschool as every discussion took place, and the staff was aware and the staff was instructed to tell the teachers. And it's quite apparent to me, the staff did not tell the teachers these discussions that were going on. So it was hidden from the teachers also. Everything going on over there was hidden from everybody. Pardon? Yeah, well, I don't want to name an individual because we may have issues with that
It goes
individual.
back as long as the former director being well informed. And the former program manager being well informed of the conversations that are taking place. And I know I've been painted as this individual that's trying to stifle communications. Nothing's further from the truth. I certainly have an obligation to control communications that are coming out on behalf of the village to make sure that they, you know, feel like it's gonna sound really, benign, but to control messaging based on our brand. But to translate that to teachers can't talk, teachers can't talk to their neighbors, teachers can't talk on social media, teachers can't come to meetings and speak or they're gonna get fired. Ask anybody that knows me. I've worked in this community for 26 years. I've been the police chief for 5 years. I pride myself on the level of transparency that you have in regards to your police department, knowing everything that's going on in this town, good or bad, related to law and order. And maybe it's a flaw on me, shame on me for trusting the directors too much and thinking that they're gonna carry their duties forward. I have a commander here. I ask him to communicate something or get something out. It gets done. I trust that it gets done. And I don't have to follow up on it. I had that same expectation for other staff. It was clear that wasn't carried forward. Ultimately, I understand that falls on my shoulders is the chief administrative officer of this village currently. So for that, I apologize. I will take that 100% that communications weren't transparent enough for you. Certainly staff that should have conveyed it to the teachers. So these conversations could have been had by parents, so there wasn't a bombshell. That information is there. It just didn't make it to you. And for that, I will apologize and say I'm sorry.
And in the chief's defense, I believe some of this stuff we say, how did this all come to light? I believe it's starting to come to light, not to put words in anybody's mouth, is, you know, some of the teachers had concerns about facilities and safety, and we started looking at those things very closely recently. Is that?
Yes, and Mayor, if I say too much, please feel free to stop me. I know there's been frustrations with some of the facilities, the Scout House in particular, for a number of years with our staff. Last December, they asked for a meeting to talk to me about those things so I could hear their concerns. And me and the assistant administrator went over there and we sat down. I thought we had a very nice conversation and had lunch together. They raised some concerns, safety related, you know, some low hanging fruit at the current Camp Grand building, but also some probably some more impactful things at the Scout House. So my process and for moving forward was to start digging into these things, right? I was told at the time, many of these concerns have been brought forward for years and they felt it fell on deaf ears. So I wanted to verify if that was the case. It was. Working through that, it was my job to now understand how do I address the concerns that the teachers raised relative to the security and safety concerns of that facility. Part of that was trying to learn what the safety and security requirements of us as a preschool operator are, right? So you turn to DCFS, you turn to Illinois legislation to try to understand building requirements, facility requirements. Started talking to the staff, understood that these things have circulated prior to me, the administration, decisions were made not to move forward on those improvements. So I started trying to find a path forward, right? And as I start reading about exemptions. I start reading about licensure, all these kind of things that you're very familiar with. That led to more questions. I started talking to the interim director who had a lot of years of experience in the park district world. He said, yes, I've recently discovered we're not DCFS licensed. but we might qualify for exemption. Again, he comes from the park district world where they're eligible under the park district code for exemption. That led us to leave working with attorneys, deeper to try to find a loophole. Finally came to the conclusion that we weren't in compliance, and I did the right thing and went to DCFS and said, here's the scenario, here's where we're at, what are our options moving forward? And the woman at DCFS, she was a saint. She spent hours on the phone with me over the last couple of weeks, literally going line by line through Rule 377 in their code to see if there's any way we can qualify for exemption, or if we can make adjustments to our operations of the program to qualify for exemption. The sticking point comes down to there really is no option other than full licensure because we're servicing non-school age children. If we were talking kindergarten, village running kindergarten, so to speak, we wouldn't have a problem getting the exemption, but there's a very distinct line and requirements for non-school age children, school age children. Trust me, this wasn't, as we're working with Lindenhurst and these things are starting to raise concerns, prompts some additional conversations, right? There was a lot of efforts to try to find a way to get us into Lindenhurst exemptions under a shared IDA to try to save this program. Fortunately, it hasn't worked out. They have limitations too. They explored on their end whether or not they could just kind of assume responsibility for their third exemption. They found out through the legal team they can't do that. They have to wait till their exemption expires and then reapply. So while I guess I've got the division of the communities on the kill cram guy. Trust me, I have not slept probably in 6 days, other than 3 hours trying to work through this process to save these kids. I'm a father of 5. All of my kids have gone through preschool, and I understand the impacts to this community, and I've always put the community first. So if you have any questions of that, that's how we started this process, where we went, how we went. And unfortunately, there's been a lack of communication. I know some sent emails, but we got to this point where the misinformation was running so wild within the community. Nothing I could have said at that point would have been helpful. So we just had to get to this point tonight with the board. The board would have the information and be able to make the ultimate decision on what they think is the best interest of the community.
Yeah, couple of comments on it, I guess. One of them, I guess, it's hard because I don't quite understand the hiring of Jeff Mahalia. If he's got such a knowledge behind it, how is this something that went through for so long without ever being raised? For somebody who's supposedly had such a background in park district operations, how does he not see this? And if this did come up in such a time fashion, you spent that extensive amount of time on it, how are we hearing about it now and not weeks ago when we knew we were out of compliance and we had operations going on during a time when we weren't supposed to be?
I think that's a very fair question, and all I can tell you is legal research takes time. I didn't want to create an unnecessary concern with the community. If there was a path forward to work through this problem and have a viable solution, Mr. Vaselli, we talked. I mean, he legitimately has had half of his law firm working on this issue around the clock since this came to their attention to try to find loopholes. It didn't happen, right? I mean, there's always ways to do communication better, right? You make the best decisions you can at the time based on the information that you have. I'm not going to say that my decisions were perfect, but I made the best decision I had with the information at the time. And I can look backwards and probably find opportunities that I could have done better. Again, I'll take credit for that and apologize. But again, the goal was not creating public panic. I know this is something you guys are very passionate about, and it would have done no good for me to come forward 2 weeks ago publicly and start saying we have these concerns. To address your point with Mr. Tequila, it was part of a larger issue, right? We had a lot of directors that took early retirement at one time with very little notice. Filling those roles is now the easiest, right? There's not a lot of qualified parks directors out there in the world. I think looking backwards at some of the challenges that we have identified, it's probably a good thing we just didn't rush to filling that role because we've identified certain skill sets that we want to have to make sure that these things never happen again. I'll admit, I've talked to the teachers, right? I recognize there was personality conflicts there, right? Sometimes that's going to happen. He was brought in on a short-term basis, and really his focus, the mayor's direction, was to look at some very large issues, right? he had a program manager that he trusted to run the program. There was a disconnect in communications in there somewhere, right? I think again, there was a personality rub. It didn't work out, and I think that personality rub just spiraled over time and led to a breakdown in communications. And ultimately, as the current chief administrative officer, falls on me, right? But again, I just ask that you appreciate the fact that, you know, that this is something I stepped into. This wasn't a career path that I sought, right? And then when the former administrator retired unexpectedly, I was asked to step into this role. I did it to serve the community, right? And again, not being a prior administrator, I think I've bumped out case of police chiefs. They're different. And there was certainly a learning curve associated with that, right? And I hope that I get better each day that this goes on. You know, serve in the capacity as long as the mayor of the board wish me to do so. But again, it's a learning curve, right? And I will look backwards and be able to say, I made mistakes, I've learned from them, and it won't happen again.
I can understand that. I can appreciate it. You have a lot on your plate. I think you probably have too much on your plate.
Yeah.
As a police chief, that's a full-time job in itself.
Right.
To step in interimly and take over responsibilities is noble and all that stuff. But do we have the position posted, looking for somebody to replace you as a full-time person? Because that's what we need to be doing as a village. You can't rely on somebody to do two jobs, two full-time jobs.
Yeah, I mean, we have had a plan and a process, and there are legal things that have to take place with,
Right, but do we have the position of the village administrator posted? We actively.
it's not posted, you
In
know.
the process
So why
of
haven't
filling
we
it,
done it?
we are in the process of filling the position.
But if we don't even have a posted.
Are we filling the chief of police or the administrator position, or we're not sure yet?
I mean, both, but we're attempting to fill those positions internally.
Okay.
So it
I
sounds like.
I actually don't know the timeline. I don't know how long.
So A, it's not unprecedented for somebody to be a police chief and an administrator, okay? When the administrator left or retired, there was, the administrator serves at the pleasure of the mayor, okay? And I was 1 year out or less, so I don't know, 14 months is the right time frame. But if you're gonna, nobody in their right mind in general is going to apply and relocate their family from another state, another city, and leave a job if their job might be gone within, 6 or 8 months. Because you lose an election, the next guy can pick who they want. I will say that I had a good relationship with the prior administrator. I will say that this individual who's standing here has done an exemplary job as the administrator and has people under him at the police chief who have taken over some of his day-to-day responsibilities. Some of them here in this room tonight. So we are very conscious. Like we're not trying to overload anybody. I wish he wasn't having to work as much as he is and other people, but we are in the process of filling that position and the police chief. And those postings will go out once we get through the legal transition on some of that stuff.
I think it's
Makes
just,
sense.
it's not meant as a personal
Sure.
attack. It's just, we're in this room talking about very large oversight.
Sure.
And we're talking about one person,
Well,
two, it's just a natural.
I will tell you what
question.
I will tell you what Jeff's best qualities are, okay? Is leading people and communication. So maybe this is just a change in the fact that communication is finally front and center in this village and you're gonna start being communicated with. And this is maybe unusual from what's happened over the last, 50 years, whatever. But this is the path we're going to, a more professional, communicative, open organization. And I'm sorry I had to take a meeting like this to get there to uncover some of these things. And God forbid, I hope there's not more of it, okay? Like, this is a big organization with a lot of layers, and a lot of department heads, and a lot of employees. And, we don't want to be micromanagers. That's not our goal. But I will say that if anybody shouldn't take the heat on any of this, it's him.
I will
Yeah.
say, as a police chief,
Mhm.
I have seen a lot of transparency.
Yeah.
You know, you see him on Facebook addressing people taking photos and attacking other people. There is a lot of transparency, so it's certainly not all bad. He deserves a break. It's been a lot. I get that it's not fair. They're just natural questions, and I think the oversight.
And
is
I'm hoping,
concerning.
and I'm hoping as we work through this issue, okay, and hopefully find a solution. And I think that a week from now, hopefully you'll be introduced and know somebody who is hired to be the parks director, that's a professional, has been doing this for a while, who has a lot of familiarity with this type of stuff, and transition this to that person, which is a lot to take on. So we are very, very close to that. I think interviews have been going on for a couple of weeks, and we have, like I said, 2 candidates, and I'm meeting with them next week. So like, they couldn't get here soon enough, as long as they still want to take the job. Yeah.
And to say in Jeff's defense, we wouldn't have known any of this with the last administrator. He's the one who uncovered we had no insurance. He was part of the process that uncovered we had no insurance. He was part of the process that uncovered we had no license. We were being misled before that. And he's bringing it out, and we're gonna have to solve it. And we want to solve it in the best manner possible for you and your kids. But right now, the bridge just collapsed underneath us. We have to come up with a plan to rebuild that bridge. And that's what we're gonna be working on.
I think that that's pretty apparent that we understand that. And like, I just wanted to tell you, I don't like that you said that you're the kill camp cran guy. I know that you're taking a lot of heat, especially from us moms. It's like, once you come for our kids, we go into mama bear mode.
Yeah, we know.
It just becomes like a tackle. So none of this was ever personal on you as a person or anything. I think it was just like the transparency when communication came out. I'm happy that you spoke on that because it was just like, we were at an open house to like plan our future for next year. And then all of a sudden, like this world came down on us. And I think like when it happened and how it was worded, yes, it was probably not the best way to like word it. So I just really hope that moving forward that it is transparent, but there obviously is a need in Antioch. You can see it online, you can see it, and I am one of those people who waited very long to get my kid into this program. I moved to here because I like the education in this area. So like, I just hope that what is being said here is people will move forward to keeping it here, because the original document that came out stating that we were moving our camps, our preschools, our programs all to Lindenhurst doesn't.
Where did that come out?
So it came out in the village post, at least that's how it read.
Okay.
So whether it was meant to come out, but how.
Was it on that presentation at the board level you're talking about?
1 hour, 1 hour, 56 seconds.
Oh, that's how we tape all this stuff, so there is a record.
Yeah, it ran it said outsourcing and we were putting everything out of here. And, as a parent, that's just like not,
And I apologize if that's how it came across and was said.
Also, the Lindenhurst Village board meeting notes specifically stated that if this moves forward, everything would be.
I think part of the problem is,
So I think
you have,
there's a lot of-
sure. You have, if you learn one thing about government, right, we don't always play well with others, right? When you have 2 government bodies trying to discuss the same issue, you're never gonna hear the same things in the same way, especially when there's no actual agreement or framework in place. And I think, again, we probably could have done better in our presentation and introduction, right? I think oftentimes when we're doing these presentations, right, it just comes naturally, you're presenting to the board, the people in the room, right? And sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there's gonna be people there to watch these things after the fact, or maybe watching them remotely and don't have the same benefit of the context, right? Some of the other discussions. The information that was presented at the board was simply to be given as research as an option, right? And my conversations with the mayor since this all came along has been collect the options, how this could work, and bring it to the board. And at the end of the day, these folks that are sitting in front of you are the ones that have to make all of these decisions. So through the evolution of the conversations with the Lindenhurst Park District, these started as options, right? It started at the very, very low level of recreational services programming. And then the conversation said, what about, would we look at this? Would we look at that? So it was the intent just to present the options to the board, what the potential financial implications of those decisions that would be made would have. And I can tell you, even before we got deep into the discussion, the discoveries that we had over the last week, we had met with Leonard Park District and started rolling back the scale of those because we heard from the community that that wasn't something that they wanted. So we started working backwards towards the original intent, which is the recreational services framework, right? To try to offer more services, better services, access to different facilities and programs to the community, hopefully at a lower cost. So again, probably it's one of those growing. I've never worked through a merger of parks and park districts, right? You know, you want me to come up with an intergovernmental agreement to make sure we have a SWAT team access, 100%. You want me to work with an intergovernmental agreement to make sure, you know, we have an emergency operations plan in place? I could probably do that in my sleep. I would, you know, but it's neither here nor there. Over the last week, you know, how to write speeding tickets and what the criminal elements of crimes are, they've been pushed out of my mind, and now they're filled with DCFS codes on how to run a preschool and a daycare, right? So I have to go back to those things. And again, if it wasn't, the intent of the presentation wasn't communicated effectively, clearly something we need to work on. If you have my commitment, we will do better in the future.
I would just like to say one, I don't mean to come across with any question like that. So again, to start with it, I appreciate the fact that you took on all this extra work. I just feel that it was a mistake on our board to allow that to happen for so long. They needed to be posting and looking for this job active. And if nobody applies, nobody looks for it because they look at positions saying it's short term with the potential of losing a mayor, well, at least we tried. The fact that we didn't even put an option out there to try to find somebody to fill a role in a position that we absolutely need, and instead of requiring our police chief to stop thinking about his day-to-day stuff as a police chief and start thinking about stuff that goes on in the village, that's not fair.
That's not a true statement. He's done more.
He's
done more. He's done more in his time than the other guy's done. And I'll give you one example. I'm gonna give you one example. You talk. Let me give you one example. We didn't even discuss the Scout House. You know, there was a letter he uncovered with the Scout House problem. We gotta deal with that problem. Okay? The Scout House has a security threat. I keep bringing up cameras, cameras, protect the children. You know, there's people that don't want cameras, Big Brother, okay? That's a problem, that's gonna be a problem. So it doesn't affect preschool, it's gonna affect the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, everybody using the Scout House. He uncovered something that came out 2 years ago on a threat. That's bad, the other guy ignored it.
Not saying he's not doing a good job. With
So,
what he's
and I will-
doing.
and I-
Sir, that's what it sounds like you're saying. He's done a great job.
And not what-
And, you know, I
He's got
understand.
it back up there.
I've never said that
Okay.
he hasn't.
No,
done a good job.
let
All I'm
me
saying
just
is
say,
not given enough time to do both.
let me just say this.
Well,
Okay?
he's got a guy backing up right there that's doing.
Then why didn't we?
Let me say this, okay?
It's a full-time job in itself.
Okay.
He should not be doing a second job.
That's
That's what I'm
exactly what
saying.
he's trying to say.
I'm not saying he's not doing a good job at it.
Yes.
I'm saying he's asked to do too much. And as a board, you should not be asking him to do that much. You should be asking. to
Why
hire
aren't you
somebody
promoting
to
the
do the
commander
job.
in chief or the commander of police into a chief role and having him as the administrator?
There are
It's not that
processes that
hard.
are in place to ensure that the position is bifurcated, split up, and there is a chief of police and an administrator. That is underway.
I'm just saying, it's been
Sure.
too long.
I mean, there are state pension laws, police pension laws, other things that have to be worked through to make it a legal process, okay? And again, when you say, why didn't we go out and put the posting? We as a board, I think, you know, obviously discussed at a board meeting, when the best person for the job is already inside your building, like, you know, that,
Then you need to give a posting for his current job.
well, we were working actively toward this, sure.
Can't ask somebody to be doing two full-time jobs.
And all I can say, obviously, there are certain things that I am not at liberty to say, right, as an attorney, we all know that. And we are in the process of taking care of that. There are certain aspects about the backwards timeline that we talked about that I am not at liberty to say, which we are processing. And I just can't divulge them, and I apologize for that. But we are in process of that. We are in process of, there's a question about audits. Audits are only as good as the information that you get. So if you're being lied to, you don't have the audit material. That's just what happens.
I mean, ultimately, I think.
Sure, again, this discussion is probably not as productive as, we're here to figure out what the hell we're gonna do with Camp Grand and make it go forward, okay? And we wanted to work, we want the teachers, the parents, the kids, we want a solution. We don't have a solution overnight. We'll continue to work on this tomorrow, whatever, however you think it's best to communicate. We have another meeting tomorrow and maybe we'll have some new information at that point. But we just obviously couldn't sit on this and wanted to get people in the room, and the reason we sent this in email, and I'll call on two of the hands up. Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I don't think anybody came here today with the intent to demean anybody.
Sure.
To put anybody down, to moving back again to the Camp Grand. As a parent, we just want reassurance that one, the village is gonna do what is necessary as fast as possible to get our kids back in the classroom, because it is not fair to have our kids to just to do what? To do, stay home, to do, some parents, I am blessed that I stay home with my children and I can keep them home and safe. But there are parents that don't have that privilege. There are parents that have jobs outside of the home. There are parents that have nannies or other daycare arrangements that now are gonna have to fumble for that extra care. And in addition to that, I have older children. If I have to drop off my child at school or at the bus, I don't have the time to take my child to Lindenhurst. I don't have the time to bring him to Green, to bring him to Ingleside or to somewhere else. There is just no, and I'm a stay-at-home mom and I don't have the time. What happens to all of those members of our community that are not as privileged as I get to be? So I think that's a very important thing to consider in the options that we look into for this year and for next year. We need that.
Well, and things are filling up.
And I'll tell you that, I know I am, and I'm sure other members of the board are committed to figuring out how to fix the bridge. But it takes some time. We just got the information. We're trying to work through it. The state, as they stated, DCFS said, well, maybe by fall we could work an extension.
And I
You know, so it
understand that.
may be a while, but we're gonna work on it.
And I understand that, but I guess in the process, I appreciate some communication of how far we're along, what else do we need to do, what kind of facilities do we have a lot of very resourceful people in this room. And I think we have contacts that we could provide if you give us the kind of facilities that we need, what kind of requirements do we need? Do we really need an app room if we're not a daycare? Do we just need a building that has a attached bathroom? And I don't know what those are. I don't know how to find them. I'm not in government. But if you give us information, maybe we can help. And it just to have that communication, it would be appreciated as a parent and it would give us a little bit of reassurance.
Does everybody in this room use Rec One?
Yes, but.
Does everybody
to
in
that,
this
I
room
did
not use Rec One?
I
I'm
did
trying to
not
see
get
how,
the
I'm trying to figure out how to get the message in.
Yeah.
Not everybody.
Some of our class didn't.
Regarding, when I assume you sent out public and parents, not.
I did not receive it. I'm here because I'm friends with other moms.
Sure.
So let me know.
Well,
that
I
did
mean,
it.
again, we start, I'd like to at least pass around or have people leave their email addresses here before you leave. Okay, so we have a list, a communication list. You had your hand up.
I wanna know how the rest of the parents that are here are going to find out.
It is 7:30. Those kids are gonna be in bed soon. They're gonna wake up in the morning and hear they're not going to school.
I mean,
anymore.
yeah.
You guys need to get on the phones right now and tell every parent that is not here about this. They think they're coming to school tomorrow. They need to hear all this.
Parents are gonna have to go to work.
We understand we have to communicate.
Yeah, I think they have to be the parents.
Other pending, if there's.
Or a guardian, I'm assuming, parent or guardian. With a lot of people like, yeah, on their way to work, be like, hey, yeah, sorry, you get, yeah.
Unfortunately. So my child, is there a solution in sight before the end of this? Do you anticipate our children returning to school
Even more than.
I can't speak for DCFS, okay? I will say that at a minimum, I'll make sure that there are local options right in here if, while we're working through the solution, and we will, again, unturn every avenue with the school district, with the Parks Department, with private contractors, with our teachers, every option, okay? Hopefully by tomorrow evening, can't promise, hopefully I have more information. I know what my day is gonna be like again tomorrow and what we'll be working through, both legal, administration, everybody, okay? I'm trying to think right now, I mean, it's a great point about the parents that aren't here for tomorrow, like, that's.
Don't we have the emergency phone?
I know, but I just hate to like, it seems like very.
Go out to every people at Tinley Park or.
We have just the Antioch specific one?
So, and mind you, I can't, I know a lot about the DC best role in like a daycare preschool facility, not so preschool. But isn't there a difference between, like, when speaking with the woman from DCFS, was it stated very clearly, and I'm sure it was, I just want to not my knowledge, like, was it stated that we are not a daycare? We do not handle that, like, we are, I don't understand, we're not underneath this umbrella of like a government aspect of like the Parks and Rec, because other programs have classes for children that are under 4. So like, I guess I'm not understanding like how we don't all, like, I didn't actually realize that we needed to, as a Parks and Rec, need to really follow and be certified through DCFS.
But most
Yeah, because it's a government
of this in this room up until recently didn't know that either. What DCFS is saying, based on the type of operation that we have, the hours that we keep, the number of kids that are in our care and the ages, we would have to be licensed in a child care facility. We were very clear about that. There's not a quote unquote preschool license, if they call it a child care facility.
Is there a certain, like, if it's 2 hours and less, we've done programs, drop-off programs, art programs, like, if that's the
So,
case, we would be willing to.
Recreation. So, I'm splitting hairs here and I don't want to confuse folks, but I'll do the best that I can to try to explain it. So when it comes to child or school age children, right, that's where all these regulations really kick in. So because it's a program where you enroll and your kids are going every Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Thursday, or Monday and Friday, whatever the schedule it is, because it's a consistently attended program, that is really what triggers this. If you're a recreational program that's like not a mandatory thing, so if we were a drop-in facility, right, and we were just doing like let's call it before and after school programs, a certain age, again, it's under kindergarten age, but if we were offering service for kindergarten age kids before and after care, we would qualify for an exemption because it's not something kids are coming to every day. It's a drop-in service. Really, it's the schedule of the program. Yeah.
It's not the same child coming every day, like, you know what I'm saying, like, there are different.
But
children.
it does-
My child there and the first child.
Yes.
Well, does it matter?
But does your kid, what, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, what do you?
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, and
So
Friday.
does your child go every Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
Yeah.
So that's where the problem is. So if this was a program that was designed that your child might go on Monday this week, and then maybe Wednesday the following, and then I might take 2 weeks off and then come back Monday and Wednesday, right? That's an intermittent basis is what DCFS considers it. But because it's a continual basis.
Yeah, I'll register my kid every day.
Excited or like a section base, you know, like the summer camps get more like the year, like does that change anything? If you look at the formatting.
Or is that something we could look at?
So for the summer camps, for school age children, yes, we're okay with having them come on a session base. For the under kindergarten, no. So like even with our summer camps, full transparency, we run into some problems with continuing the 3 to 5 year old summer camp. The kindergarten through 7th grade that we offer, DCFS has really assured me that we'll be able to work through the process of getting the necessary exemption to run that, because it's school age children. It's on a they would consider it an intermittent basis, because you register by week. and you pay per day. And there's a 2-day minimum, but that might be Monday and Friday, might be Tuesday and Wednesday, then we might not see you for 3 weeks, right? So there's a lot of different factors that play into this based on the schedule of attendance, program design. But the real kicker on this is the age.
So like if the library hosts like every Tuesday, they have like a, you know, play date kind of program or something like that. And I think in many cases that may have parents like with that. It's not like a
Correct.
drop off
Correct.
situation, but I don't know. I mean, I think at the very least, maybe it's something to look at. If we change the format because we are preschool, I mean, our children benefit as if it is follows all the regulations, especially with the staff that we do have, but, you know, like to her point, like they're not napping. There are differences in the way that we, the service that it's providing truly, so it's like, we just kind of don't really fit into that box, but obviously we have to follow the rules.
Yeah, and it really the kind of, so again, that falls back into the caveat. Is that, would there be an opportunity to adjust the program to obtain the exemption? Potentially.
Right.
However, once you have that exemption, now this triggers the auditing process, right? Where we have to supply child attendance records, all these kind of things. When they do that audit, they see that we have kids that are probably coming every Tuesday and Wednesday or Thursday and Friday. They're gonna come in and flag this again and say that you need a license, go right back to school.
Yeah,
That bias.
there's a lady in the back. There's a lady in the back that's had her hand up for quite a while.
Oh, I was okay letting him talk. I have 2 questions, sort of. So I know most of the parents here, our payments are due on the 1st of every month, and like, if you don't pay by like the 5th, it's automatically pulled from your account. Who is in charge of stopping that if we're not bringing our kids to school after?
Yeah,
What do they usually do? Would they use it at the same time every month?
Yeah, so like our payments are due the 1st of every month, and if you don't manually pay it like online, then they pull it. Who is going to stop?
Yeah, it was
Okay. I'll make sure that, I'll make sure that that is,
Yeah, so Alice did it annually.
so it won't, it's not automatic.
We signed up for auto pay and what they would do is have a license with auto pay.
Sure.
And then.
I'll make sure that, like I said, everybody gets the refunds and that they're not charged, you know, and we have a solution.
And then I have a second part to my question, sorry.
Yeah.
Reach out to you and.
Yeah, well, let's, like I said, he's talking to the teacher to figure out the communication part of this right now, okay? And hopefully we'll have some clarity on that in about 30 seconds. Hopefully we'll have more clarity on all of this, you know, within the next 24, 48 hours, all right? I've never hoped for a school like snow day so much in my life as I do right now, because you know, it's a lot of these issues for tomorrow. What's that?
There's a nice storm. So you
I know, but,
You're on the lady in the back.
I had a second
Sure, you go for it.
So with this being uncovered recently with you taking over in this position, what are we doing to ensure proactively that this isn't gonna happen again? And not even just with Camp Fran, but I mean, if we're blaming directors for, you know, not passing down information about these laws and compliances, how are we making sure that not only this is taken care of for the future, but also for other departments? How are we making sure the police have their correct insurance? How are we making sure, you know, Public Works and everybody else is compliant as well? Because this seems to be a government as a whole issue. The way it's being described as like who's responsible and who's overseeing.
I guess.
We specifically brought that up. We're working on that. We will be addressing that.
Do you guys not have a GRC person on anywhere within the department on the village?
I'm sorry.
GRC, governance, compliance and regulation.
That'd be our attorney.
The,
I don't like that answer.
no, the way this gets handled is that the department heads go through and they report, and the subordinates to them report to them. We all done, and again, I cannot get into all the details with regards to this. But the documentation that we had, we were provided, asked, said that we were in compliance with DCFS regulations. That's all I'm gonna say about it. That's all I can say about it. I would like to say two things though, if that's okay. Number one, Miss Nancy, is that correct? There was an, I don't know, there was an app, it's called the Band app, that's my understanding. Now, there are certain means of communications that governments have to use, just because we are a government. The Band app is not one of those that meets those requirements necessarily. We are going to take steps, and if you saw me ask Miss Nancy to step outside with me to be able to use the Band app for one last message, which we will record in a different way to ensure legal compliance to get the message out for everyone. That was an excellent question. It was an excellent response. And part of the reason we're here is to get feedback from everybody to go forward. And we'll see to the extent we will take steps and measures to legally use this through this process to ensure the most, to ensure a legal way to be able to use this. But we have to use it in a limited context because we have to comply with the law. I am sorry, I have to say that. I hope you all understand that. Number one. Number two, I cannot get into a lot of details, but we are even calling, if you've seen me check my phone, we are calling Springfield. We are trying to do everything we can for this. We are trying to turn over every stone. That doesn't help anyone in this room, other than the fact to know that from a full transparency perspective, we are trying to kick every tire to try to get this done. This isn't like we're done, we're just telling you, have a good night. Okay, we are going to keep on working on this. We have calls set up. I can't get into all the details. I hope you all understand that. We have calls set up, we have other steps set up, and we will continue to do that. And I'm sure you'll have some of the same questions, and we may have some of the same responses tomorrow. But we may have more tomorrow as well. And the idea is to keep working for that end. At some point, I'm gonna ask Miss Nancy to step out, or when we wrap up, with me, and we'll craft a message with some executive staff to get to those parents who are not lucky enough to be here tonight, or not available to be here tonight. We do want information from everybody who wants to be involved in this for an email list, because there are facts about this program that we can learn from everyone in this room. Part of this process was we had to inform the board on certain things. We wanted to let everyone have the opportunity to talk. So please take that opportunity and also to gather information. We are in a learning process just as much as you are, but it's different levels of learning. We found things out, we respond to you. Now you have to tell us, this is how we can help. So please cooperate with us with that. That would be my one request. And I have no basis to ask for it. But my ask is cooperate with us to make this tomorrow a better day than today, to be honest with you.
More questions up there, okay? There's two of them, you guys did.
Just first, solutions for the instant, right, for tomorrow. And how to reach the parents that haven't been reached and how they could potentially plan to be able to come say goodbye to us. It would make sense to me because I understand legal implications of being in a classroom with a child. It's been a concern of mine for quite some time. So I understand we cancel class for the rest of the week or a week and a half, and we schedule something that allows parents to take time off or to be in the building with us so that we can have those
Sure.
last moments with our class.
Sure, as their schedule allows. I understand
Right,
that.
instead of
Yes.
trying to push.
I mean, we're not gonna
something
like padlock the door, okay?
but
Obviously.
I mean,
yeah.
like, I need to know if I'm going to work, so I just feel like instead of forcing the issue and being in the building tomorrow and gathering whoever we can and making the exception.
I think what I understand from legal team and from the administrator is just currently right now, like the guardian or parent just has to be with the kid.
But I think what she's saying is like, working mom here,
Mhm.
I can't take tomorrow off, I can't take Friday off, I can take
Let
2
us
weeks
plan
off.
for it.
I can take 2 weeks, I can take it off, but I can take my child to
Be
daycare.
there.
Are you saying instead we should have like an event?
Yeah.
Or a gathering.
Yeah.
or
Like,
a plan with no-
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, I mean, we could work through that. I mean, these are things like, again, these are things that we could definitely work through, okay?
I'm just trying to solve the immediate issue.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And rather than trying to force communication and arrangements and all of the
Sure.
things that we understand we can't.
I understand.
tomorrow.
So would, again, speaking as a group, just so I can help orchestrate what you folks would like to see, is it your proposal that we just tell folks that it's closing and they don't have, not to report tomorrow, but let them know that we're going to be coordinating a reunion, so to speak, to allow that opportunity within the next 2 weeks. It's 1 week off, 2 weeks off. What's the
Well,
appropriate time?
I mean, I hope that I guess that would depend on, can the teachers still be there during this time frame, those days? Yeah.
Notice, absolutely.
Okay, so can the teachers plan on at least being there from now until, I think it's a long weekend next week till like next Thursday, so we work through this stuff? Just the teachers.
So we just go.
I don't know, we'll have to, why don't the teachers stick around for a couple minutes after this, okay? Okay.
Discuss possibly, like, could we look into, like, I mean, I got a big car, I can take guardianship of half the class, and be their guardian for that, like, have we looked into that, where for the next few weeks, we can have, like, do they have like a ratio that possibly we can have two parents?
We'll
sit in
look into guardianship, we'll look into waivers, I'll look into everything.
To like buy us a little time to figure this out.
It's still a facility.
We still do have a facility issue. It's a great, I mean, again, thank you. We still have the facility issue.
Shutting down on the facility tomorrow, would they?
Well, here's the thing, and again, things we could try to work through our attorney and some of the resources he has. We're on DCFS's radar right now.
Correct.
So we gotta be very cognizant of the fact, right?
Yeah,
I don't want, if they show up randomly, because they will verify that we have ceased operations. They told me that they will send state inspectors to verify that we ceased operations, and if they stop in, they have to make sure the parents are in the care of a guardian, right? So we have to be very careful of how we navigate that, because, I'm sure they've seen every game in the book, trying to be played, not necessarily by municipalities, most of these shady private folks that you see operating legal daycares all the time on TV, so that happens. So they're gonna be tuned into our program right now. And let's not discount the fact that there's a lot of eyes out there, a lot of social media warriors out there that would probably be very quick to drop a dime to DCFS and say, hey, you should be aware that the village is doing this. So if there's a legal way to work through it, where we're not gonna expose staff in the village and the residents to liability, I think that's something that we're willing to try to work through.
Is there a way to, well, I have two things. One, my children are not in the 4-year-old program. But as far as priority, I think you said something about Lindenhurst maybe not being able to take on the capacity of all the classes, and I don't know, but to me, it feels like the kids that are preparing for kindergarten, for them to have them through the most structure and more immediately, if there's any.
Go about 4-year-olds. Yeah, so let me kind of address that. So as it stands tonight, right, Lindenhurst has limited capacity in some of their classes, right? They have the same challenges we do, right, with enrollment. But the executive director, whenever I walk out of this tonight, I'm gonna give him a call. It says, once he has that green light for me, he's gonna engage conversations with his staff, right? And see if they're willing to make adjustments to their schedules, right? They gotta be respectful of teacher schedules. They build their lives around their classes. They do have capacity to expand their operations to take all of our kids if there's the demand, right? If the parents want to go to that program, I understand that some folks may not be able to do that, but they can build the capacity to do so. But they can't act until we give them the blessing to start moving forward with that. So, if it's the mayor's will for me to reach out, ask their organization to start looking at how to ramp up their operations to accommodate our kids, then I think that's something that we're willing to do.
Even if they could take, if they're like, well, we have one empty classroom right now today, we could bring on your teachers and that classroom, it could function essentially the way that it was in Antioch, but here for now to get those kids through the rest of this year as they prepare for kindergarten. Maybe there is for the rest of us an opportunity to have something else created in the interim where we can do some sort of session based, not what it looks like today, but these are the families that go to school together. So on Wednesdays, there's an event at the library or a different building that doesn't run into the problems that these buildings may. as far as I just mean like for now,
Just to, you sure you're thinking more of like the social, emotional aspect of these
yeah, like
connections?
a more organized thing, like,
Let's say this, we don't have any immediate plans for the building. You know, our teachers are going to be on the payroll at the end of the year, as the mayor said. We're being respectful of their schedule. If, you know, it's a mom's group or a parents group, you guys want to get together and say, hey, can we get the class together? And, you know, moms or dads or grandparents all come in, and will Miss Nancy happen to be there that day?
right.
Sure, in the facility be open, but it's still kind of, you know, it'd be more of a recreational program at that point, right? We can't, but quote unquote operate. The biggest thing is if DCF does show up, every child in there has to have a guardian with them. And we can't be, what's the word I'm thinking of? And we can't be running a consistent program, right? So if a mom's group wants to do this every 2 weeks, right, that would be considered intermittent, I believe. And again, you know, the component similar to our 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old program, parents are with the child at the time, so the village is technically not in custody. You know, but again, if the teachers want to work with you guys and say, you know, hey, on Valentine's Day, we're gonna hold a, you know, Camp Cran recreational program on this day. Parents can attend with the child, or either for 2 hours, we're gonna do crafts or arts or whatever, maybe plan those things, and I think that would suffice.
If some sort of temporary something option were to pop up, because we know ASAP as far as like a lot of our kids that just started getting used to going to school for the first time and like loving it.
Sure. So while the band app is a challenge for the village to use, right, from a government entity, you as parents are able to use the band app as freely as you wish to communicate, organize these things. So I would imagine communicate back and forth as parents. Run into the challenges like the outgoing communications from the teachers, you know, so there's always a workaround, right? That's on a limited basis. But
I
if
was
you get,
saying for like a specifically like the drop off aspect, like our kids who are in the program for the first time. And it was an adjustment for them to be dropped off, and now they love it. It's like a huge setback for them to stop going. And then have to like readjust, which I know is not everybody's worry, but like.
well, it's a very legitimate.
I just want to understand more, program, just kind of touch back on that, because like.
The which program?
3.
The 4K.
Or 4K, because my son's 3, like, and I plan to register him for that 4K program and had my oldest son in it, and saw what a tremendous job these teachers did. I even had compliments from Hillcrest and his testing. And so like my priority is to make sure my now 4-year-old, 3-year-old son has that same opportunity. And I think that should be one of the biggest focuses of that 4-year-old program, to make sure that these kids who are currently in can get adjusted. And then for us parents who really were needing that program for next year, can have that, because it's like, you say like, maybe they can go to Lindenhurst, like maybe, but then it still puts me in a situation, should I like run and go try to get him in that 4K program if they have availability, because I don't even know. And then my son doesn't have anything, and then I'm stuck in that position.
And their days and hours, if we are having conversations with them, are not ideal in my opinion. They don't offer what we offer as far as like a 5-day morning. So if we do explore that idea further, like, you know, can that be part of the conversation, that for what we want to do in the short term, can we offer our hours and our design?
So again, you know, like the specific operations of their program, I think our ability to have to manage that's right. That'd be like Bill on the side of our programs. However, they you know, so what's going on in the preschool realm is probably no secret. The state is throwing a ton of money at the public school systems to expand preschool offerings, right? So you see school districts creating the programs, right? The preschool for all programs, building the new facilities, all these types of things, right? So as districts are doing that, it's pretty common through all of these districts that are offering from their enrollments right now. So with the Lindenhurst Park District, you know, when they're entering their year, planning for the year, they were planning to run classes 5 days a week. But they ran into some enrollment challenges. They operate their their programs operate a little bit differently, right? Their business models are different, so they had to scale back their operations. They've gotten every indication from David, their executive director, he would love to have classes 5 days a week and running more. It was just a capacity, an enrollment issue for them, where they had to make some of those decisions. And that's what I'm hearing, I will pass along the message to him that, as he tries to ramp up classes, that, that's kind of what you folks would like to see, is have that 4-year-old class capacity built out first.
And maybe look into that, 'cause I know a lot of the schools do have 3.4K programs. I don't know if that falls under the elementary type guidelines, that maybe that could be a program that does stay and does fall under the exemption. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of schools do offer that in their districts. I don't know. Possibly the kindergarten, I understand the 3 and 2.
Jeff, there's a lady in the back that's had her hand up for 15 minutes.
Mayor probably can't see her behind the phone.
Right.
And I'm trying to,
My biggest question is I only have a 3-year-old. And so I'm not necessarily concerned about this year. Like I can get him where he needs to be. But everything's filling up around, like Gurney's on a wait list for next year. Lindenhurst, like Red Apple. And they're like 3 times the price. I just want to know, do I start like scavenging to find my kid a place? Because yes, I do have that same issue. I have 2 older kids that get on a bus, and I live in Antioch, but I'm like closer to downtown Wilmot. I live on a farm down there, so like my kids get on the bus at almost 8 o'clock. So, and their programs start at 8:30, so it's like, don't give me a ticket. Red minivan, don't give me a ticket. I'm trying to get my kid to preschool now because he does need to go to preschool because he's attached to my umbilical cord still. He needs to find those.
You need him to go.
But
There is already waitlist.
everything's waitlisting right now. And so that's why I came, because I was like, oh no, it's closing down. So I'm like, I need to either get on the phone tomorrow and start sending in my registrations like ASAP.
So again,
Because most of the open houses have already happened.
I don't want to speak for the board, right, but it seems the intention or the will of the board is, the Lindenhurst, if we're able to get them to expand, is that the village is gonna cover that price differential for this year.
Yeah.
Right, to help cover that. So kind of taking a step backwards, like a lot of the discussions taking place around the shared services agreement that we've been discussing with them for some time was structured around getting Antioch residents in district rates, right? To help control the costs, but then also priority registration. So, their district residents would get, conceptually, they'd open the registration, they would get 7 days where only district residents could contribute because of the financial contribution the village would be making to their program. More Antioch Village residents would get, or program attendees would get second priority to those, right? So how that's gonna evolve now, because it's been kind of a different events I can't speak for. But Mr. Moore was pretty confident that he would be able to build capacity based on our enrollment numbers to find space. Assuming his staff says, yeah, no problem, we can do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he'll look to hire additional staff to come in to build that. They
For
will be able
this
to
year?
absorb.
Is that for the remainder of this year?
He would like to start, when I send him a message tonight, he will talk to his staff tomorrow to start working on that process to expand his capacity ASAP.
But
He said it's not gonna happen this
Their
week.
registration for next school year was January.
Yeah.
So their programs are already past priority, anybody can sign up now.
That's like,
And
so
what-
just give me like a
do I
week
sign-
that I have to go find someone.
Yeah,
like,
so do I
tomorrow.
need to start looking for my kid
Yeah.
for next year, or do I have
Or my kid's
confidence
staying
in
home.
that there will be a King Crayon
I'm not,
offered for my
yeah.
child next year?
and I'm not trying to attack you. I just want like a wink or a nudge, like, go fly, go find somewhere to go. Like,
Like in your
I have
heart,
to
will
prepare.
there be a
and-
camp grant next year? Or do you feel
I think
after
they
talking
need
with the person from DCFS, do you feel it is feasible to get to that point by next year?
I think there's some very large hurdles to overcome, right? I'm not a sugarcoat kind of individual, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
So I think,
Which is fine. I just want it,
Yeah, that's not on you.
it's not this isn't on you guys, like, yes, I feel blindsided tonight.
100%.
But again, it's been going on for 5 years, so it's not on you. You guys are just taking the brunt of it. I totally understand. I see that. But I have to look for my kid, my last child. I have to figure out, okay, tomorrow, am I hitting the ground running, applying to Red Apple Academy in Milburn? Or because they start a little later than Lindenhurst because of my time restriction, or do I have to go to Wisconsin to
Well,
try to find
can I-
something? So I'm like trying to like.
I'll tell you what my gut feels about this,
Yeah.
is that it's either gonna be, we're gonna be with Lindenhurst and you're gonna have the opportunity still to expand that program, or Lindenhurst is gonna figure out a way to operate here. I think either way, the discussion is with Lindenhurst in that regard.
Mayor,
Yeah, sure.
I apologize, just because I want to make sure the right information gets across is Lindenhurst wouldn't be able to assume our program until the expiration of their current exemption.
Sure.
Which he had to look, he said it's either 1 year or 2 years, he can't remember when it was applied for last offhand, so.
That's the program, but not the people, right?
Correct.
That's the program. They could expand their current program, but to assume a new program would be.
In their current facility, yes. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
They like make more for paying five.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Correct.
They have space.
Correct.
They have the resources to grow their operation.
When
Can-
those
can I-
conversations are being had, can we talk about the programming and adjust times so that they work with families? in
Can I
Ann
tell you
Arbor?
one thing also that we haven't even mentioned? I'm not gonna let him, I told him I'm not gonna hang him out to dry, but David will be there tomorrow night. The director of the Lindenhurst.
And so that's why I didn't know it was gonna be there tomorrow night, but I was gonna suggest give them tomorrow to talk to the Lindenhurst people, then they can answer questions better now that they know what they gotta do.
Yes, and I would say that too, we have to be cautious. He has to be cautious what he speaks about, right? Because he's the executive director. But like me, he answers to a board and there's decisions that he can make recommendations to that board, but he can't speak for the board. But I can tell you that, in Antioch, I would like to hire 14 more police officers for the police department, expand our payroll. As much as I want to do that, I have to answer to these folks up here and they have to give me that blessing. So it's much the same situation I've done at Hearst where he could talk to his teachers, get that blessing, but he's committed to immediately start working with his board. His staff is willing to expand to grow that program. Not by the end of the week, but he thought within 2 weeks, his goal is he'd be able to expand and be up and running. If there's an interest from the community, I didn't want to speak for you folks either and say, yeah, you want to go to Lindenhurst. You have other options, right? But if you choose to, he's committed that he will do his best to try to expand.
So, when speaking with him, could you, request the possibility of these wonderful women behind us continuing? And that's if you choose to do it, because part of the reason why half of us chose Camp Karen is the curriculum that they have, is the experience that they have. These women behind here all hold higher education in what they do. And the majority of the preschools out there, they do not do that, to be honest. Like, most of them hold their bachelor's in either elementary or early childhood. And most places you can get a 6-week certification in early childhood education. And from what I've heard through the grapevine, again, moms speak to each other, is that Lindenhurst, a lot of times it's like, there's a high school assistant in there and things like that. So like, I know that I chose this program based on that, so I'm hoping that when those conversations would happen with Lindenhurst, that would be something that, again, it's up to you guys if you want to do that, but maybe expanding could include some of our curriculum and our teachers.
And I can tell you that the mayor did have that conversation.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, and again, welcome to any resource, whatever we need to do to expedite the process with the teachers. Because again, like I said, my kids, friends' kids, I mean, I heard Miss Nancy's name a million times, like glowingly, and all the rest of the teachers. So yes, I understand their value in this whole situation. Because Jeff's kind of answering the question right now. Do you want to call on the?
I just think it's a really nice, transparent conversation. I know we have it tomorrow, but is there a way we can have some sort of dedicated communication stream on this, whether it be an email with updates, so that it's not after tomorrow, we've kind of like
We're
Yeah.
back in the whole.
Sure, and that's why we're gonna get together a group, message there and add people, like I said, whatever we could use the band app for in the very interim to get, to get that out, but this,
Every Friday.
there's gonna be I would assume a daily update right now, okay?
Mayor, can we get that on the website right away, a dedicated page regarding this issue so that we get updated there as well?
Sure, that's a Jim, I don't know how that works, that's a Jim Moran question.
It shouldn't be that difficult, but let's get that up and
Yeah,
activate.
and let's avoid Facebook, let's avoid a Facebook page, I have a website, yeah, let's avoid a Facebook page. Web page, yes, okay. All right, so there's a bunch of hands, okay, there and then over here, okay, back there and then over here.
I have a legal question for you.
Mhm.
Could we use the loophole for homeschooling and just rent a section in the village? You have a whole room full of educators that follow state curriculum. If you can teach your child at home, why can't all these teachers on a ratio of 1 to 4, which is what is the law on the ratio, why can't they do these homeschooling at a rented building in the village? Could that be considered a loophole?
I don't know the answer. I don't.
Maybe raise that.
Yeah.
We'll write it down.
Oh, it's all on tape.
It's on tape, we'll look at.
And we will absolutely consider that,
Because you're allowed to
Listen,
homeschool yourself and
I
other
mean,
children.
yes.
So why can't these educators?
There's security issues.
Again, it's the facility is probably the biggest issue too at that point, but we will definitely look at it.
There's security issues.
And here and I was over here, right? Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. So, we know for this year and for next year, but we are still moving forward on the goal to have Camp Fran back here in Antioch.
Yeah, they want to use our brand. I can't say what, I guess it comes down to their licensing, right? So however that program, like I said, we're trying to make it as status quo as possible with,
Because
yeah.
having Lindenhurst as a backup option, and that's not gonna be a good backup option.
You're talking about location wise?
Yeah, like, cause we talked about Lindenhurst taking our bids for the rest of this year and next year, depending on what happens with PSS, but I still wanna understand and clarify.
Well, I will say, I don't want to speak for David, okay, or his full plan, but we have said it's important to have like services for our residents locally. And he said today to me, and maybe I misunderstood him, Jeff, that, yeah, once they figure out their licensing and structure in the future, their goal would be to have like a location, satellite, whatever you call it, here. Right? Was that what he said, Jeff? Did I
Yes.
misinterpret that? Yes.
They have an interest, and again, subject to his board weighing in of when their exemption comes due for renewal, to modify that exemption to include our facility. And it would be, that it would be operated as a satellite of, right under the Camp Grant brand.
So Camp Cran, Antioch Camp Cran, as we know it, is done and everything has to move on to Lindenhurst, regardless of what path we move forward. That, am I understanding this correctly? Because I know, I want to be very clear and understand.
So again, I don't wanna split hairs or use fancy language that's gonna just, create more questions. Based on the very extensive conversations I've had for Linda, and knowing this current state of facilities, the requirements of this state, nothing's impossible, but it would be, I think, an uphill battle to be able to open Camp Cran under village control because of the licensing requirements.
Ever again?
Yes, because the park districts operate under an exemption that's created for them within the park district code. Something we're not regulated by 132. Under DCFS code, which is under the administrative code, there's no exemption that exists. And the licensing agent for Lake County and Kane County that oversees us was very kind, and we legitimately went line by line through these codes and opportunities for exemptions. And there was not any opportunity or legal right to obtain that, which goes back to the need to be a licensed child care facility and the standards for that, right? You go from here for exemption requirement to here for a license. Personnel wise, not as concerned due to the backgrounds of these ladies, but the facility itself with the procedures that have to be in place, I think is really gonna be the biggest hurdle. I think we'd be looking at this scenario where we truly have to start from the ground up with the building. Make it fully compliant, ADA accessible, all these other challenges.
So would that take us back to Mr. Ricardo's question earlier as to a park district in the future or?
Yes,
something like that?
I want to answer this very carefully. So, we have explored options. Certainly if the voters of this community decided that there was an interest in a park district, or if there's a process by which a referendum could be placed on the ballot for the voters to decide if they feel that they want to invest their tax dollars in such a purpose. There is also an opportunity to capitalize on shared resources where, again, if the voters of our community and the voters of the Lindenhurst Park District wanted to focus more on a regional park district, right? Basically, the more people and the taxpayers you have going into a taxing body, the lower the rate you pay, right? It's just the power, the compounding powers of the dollar. There is an opportunity that could happen as well. It's a little bit more complex because first, the Lindenhurst Park District would have to go to referendum for their voters to say, yes, we want to expand, right? And allow us or other surrounding communities to align. But yeah, their longer term vision, I believe, I can only speak for them, is to create opportunities at some point for them to become more of a regional park district where it would not just be, could hypothetically, right? Not just be the Lindenhurst Park District, would be the Lindenhurst Antioch area park district, right? Where then we would have the ability to put people of our community on their boards, by elections, those type of things. So there, again, that decision lays with you folks as our taxpayers, whether it's something you want to see pursued.
We have the financial ability to invest in better facilities that could help. So I feel like the one thing our community is lacking is the facility. I mean,
I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. We've used the schools inflation about the prices, made our sports programming, the other programming less feasible from a financial standpoint. The township just bought a building, the gym's not, we had looked at St. Peter's before it was sold. We've looked at, having brought up kids here, and I grew up in another suburb where there was a park district. I mean, we had basketball leagues and stuff all run through the town, dads would coach, we'd go on Saturdays at a facility. I agree we don't have.
Yeah.
Do I think that it's time for Antioch to really consider that stuff? Yes. Do we have that taxing ability and line item? No, but the voters said, hey, we want a park district. Of course, I mean, it's part of the growth of these towns. So.
Going beyond just a building that supports those things. We already have the ability to go to Lindenhurst
Sure.
if we want to
Sure.
play basketball or whatever, or go to, Lake Villa. They have a very nice baseball, softball facility that I feel have the space and the ability, if we invest financially into our city.
So let me tell you, one of the main goals and drivers of this plan with Lindenhurst is to be able to not lose $500,000 on programming every year and use that for a couple things. Full-time, maintenance crews for the parks and the fields, and make sure and then infrastructure for the parks. We've been talking about infrastructure for the parks. I mean, we got a grant to reduce Centennial Park. We're going to continue to look at these parks so that our parks are, the best that around that we can give. But we have to redirect those dollars, so to speak, and that's what we're trying to do.
So moving forward towards, clearly there's a interest in a park district. And that would start from us as voters. So would creating a petition for tomorrow and having parents show you.
You would know how a referendum gets on the ballot.
Referendums, that's an excellent question. Referendums are a very specific manner to get on the ballot. You have to do it 76 to 92 days before the next general election. So you are outside the window of this election in April. The next general election would either be a November. I will have the information on the dates for the next referendum cycle at the meeting tomorrow.
Just like the fire department has their own district, okay? As a village, again, times change. We can do the best we can with our resources, but public safety, police, public works, infrastructure, that's our jam, so to speak. The parks has outgrown, it's gotten more complicated. The world's gotten more complicated. So, part of the reason we're here today is because of that evolution. And, I guess if a referendum, I've always said I'm not a referendum or raising tax guy, but this is the one referendum that I would support 100%.
Yeah, because on the outside, you go through Antioch, and we're doing all these things to make it look very family orientated, and then all of a sudden now we have no like programming is what it feels like, you know, like the seniors were moved 2 years ago and then now. So it's like, from the outside, it's like I drive through and I'm hearing everyone say like, move to Antioch, we're so family oriented, and then now it's like the rug being.
Well, that's terrible to
Yeah.
hear, 'cause that's exactly what
Right, and
we
I
would
know
not-
that
we
that's
would-
not.
we would not want,
Right,
yes,
right,
yeah.
so I, yeah.
That's a time sensitive thing real quick.
Sure.
Can I get on the band app right now and message parents and say like, you're not having school
Should
tomorrow?
come to you.
Or
I would,
you are having? school
respectfully, I
tomorrow?
would prefer it comes from the teachers, if that's okay. Would you, I mean, I,
30.
I know, and we started talking about, yeah, we should,
We should have done it when we talked. about
yeah,
it.
no, it's okay. Yeah, Miss Nancy, would you mind?
Cause I thought you said. as a
Okay,
parent.
we all have to do our own class.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, come on, teachers. Let's go.
All right.
I'm gonna take it away.
Yeah, there are more comments. I mean, and I'm gonna be with the teachers a little bit after this too, okay? But my pledge to you is that, you will hear something from us, at least for sure the next 2 days and daily until we have some kind of clarity on where this goes, okay? Like, again, I have kids, I raise kids in this, I understand how this goes and what the burden it puts on parents and families, and especially for the kids emotionally, okay? I do not take that, lightly. So we now, as we talked about this, and I've gotten great feedback from you and have different ideas, now we can go to the different people that may be able to help us and try and help us to fix this. Okay, that's our goal.
Can you clarify on the app? Because I
Yeah.
believe it was said that parents could go on there and use it, but then now.
So I would suggest that at least for this purpose, like I would like a message to go out and a global message this one time, and then we'll use this email list and we'll switch to these emails to keep everybody informed. So there's a record of all of our communications. Okay, so there's no miscommunication, there's no misinformation, there's one source sending that out.
How do people that are not here get on this list?
We will well, I guess the ones that aren't here that didn't get the email, I guess.
Well, how about the general parks mailbox of parks@antioch.l.gov? They can send their.
There's
contact
a
information.
bounce back for Jeff that's on that email,
What's that?
Oh, they're-
unless that's been resolved.
I thought.
Yeah, tomorrow night,
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
like a
people
general
come.
reply.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At least, but if you send in your information, say I'd like to be added to the communications list for Camp Grant, even if, there's.
Or put it in the band app.
yeah, yeah.
Participants.
If we
Or-
communicate in the band.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with a couple, I mean, listen, we've been using it for long enough, but it was being misused at the end. And I would like, a couple informational things at the end are, let me just
Throw this out there, too bad Jimmy left, but I'm just thinking creatively. So, Camp Crane is closing and ceasing operations, right? So if there's communications taking place amongst that with parents, I guess even the teachers at that point, is it official village communications at that point? Because it's no longer relative to village business.
It would
Like
be
if it's
for
just
sure.
the parents
Still
using it as a
pay.
social media platform at that
Create your own,
point.
yeah, create a group.
But.
But I'm gonna use, this is gonna be where the official village communication goes.
I mean,
Well, you guys wanna call me names and stuff, put on the band. This is where we're gonna be.
But
regular
I
communications.
don't have the ability to invite everyone because I don't know the other classroom. So one of the teachers would have to create,
Sure.
would have to invite. Like I can create one and be an admin of the group, but, I would need to make somebody an admin to be able to invite the other parents in the other classrooms. That's what I mean. So, like, how would, I would be able to, outside of our class.
Hopefully the teachers will have a suggestion. for us
Yeah.
if they think,
Well, we should have registration, information somewhere, like everybody registers
Sure.
with their contact information,
Yeah.
so I don't know where.
I mean,
that is.
I have.
And that's what went out tonight was the rec.
But I
rec
didn't
one
get it.
was the rec.
My kids have
Everybody-
been in Camp Grant for 3 years and I did not
Yeah,
get
get
that
it.
communication. Yeah, but they should all have our emails. You can create just an email.
Yes, right.
I think the question though was what about the parents that weren't here tonight? And it may be something part of what they're crafting in the other room, and I think their concern was they wanted a consistent message instead of 5 of you sending out schools out
But-
message. Going
Yeah.
forward, you guys do whatever you wanna do, but
One email to every email that is registered as a parent that registered their child,
Yeah.
not doing the band at
Yeah.
Berlin, just sending, I mean, maybe we don't wanna post it as like the Village Mania. Send us your email if you wanna be on this informational chat, but we did register with contact information, so if somebody can filter through that information or double check that everybody's included in however rec one is working. I mean, that would probably be the best way to notify everybody, to like the best of your ability, obviously. Somebody doesn't use an email anymore.
We'll do some digging to see what we can find, obviously, with the departure of Allison. We're trying to find files sometimes for employees higher,
The paper system,
Yeah.
campground wasn't.
If we create, what if we create a Camp Coran Facebook group that is through, like,
I mean, they're
like,
gonna know,
request
everybody's gonna
only?
know tomorrow.
But I'm
morning.
saying, right, but I'm
Somebody-
saying like for communication, well, I guess you guys.
They're gonna
can
know
change
tomorrow.
yours.
They're gonna show up. We should put a sign on the door.
Tomorrow, there is nothing. We're not coming to do the goodbyes tomorrow. We're planning a date for that. Is that, I'm
Seems to
fine
be
with
the
with
will
that?
of, Sharon's.
I think it just doesn't serve everybody and it's too hard for parents that would then have to say.
It makes it harder.
So I think,
Planning that goodbye date then. Is that coming from you? Is that coming from the teachers?
We'll work with the teacher.
Whatever it is.
I think that will be for all.
well, we should put a sign on the door.
I would say,
Yeah.
Would that be during, or would that be another time?
Yeah,
During
yeah,
that.
I don't think it matters to us, to be honest, you know, if you decide you wanna do it in the evening, that's fine, or the afternoon, whatever works for most, I think.
I think we should be on.
I think Valentine's Day too.
I know that.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a Valentine's Day party coming up and all the kids have already gotten their.
yeah,
But older kids are out of school, so are they?
Oh, you mean the 13th would have been, there was no school on the 14th.
Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, cause ours is the 12th.
Ours is the 12th.
Oh, they're
Okay.
the 13th.
alright, so. Alright, so the teachers are gonna get the message out. We're gonna reconvene tomorrow for those of you that hopefully can make it, hopefully have even more information and answers. You know, there's gonna be obviously a broader discussion about the Lindenhurst stuff, as well as, obviously, I'm sure majority is still gonna be related to this tomorrow. We'll make sure we send a daily updates as we talk to Lindenhurst and the school districts and, private, vendors as well. And like I said, whatever we can do to make this as right as possible is the goal.
I have one other question, sorry, and this applies to tomorrow, I'm sure too, but, if we do enter an IGA with Lindenhurst, I think it was said that there is potential for that to be temporary, like a contract of 3 years. This isn't like the 100% future. And so if we do, I mean, there is a lot of momentum right now that I feel like if there ever will be a park district pass, there's a lot of people with a lot of feelings about it now,
Yeah.
so.
This
whatever
is,
we
this
come
is, this
down
is, we're testing it out and there are cancellation or out clauses for either party. So this is not, once we go one direction, we can never go back in another direction. That's, yeah, it's not being set up that way.
For the IGA,
Mhm.
you had said that either way, it sounds like it wouldn't even be in effect for another year or so.
No, we're trying, like, honestly, if we're gonna do this, it's gonna happen before our budget, it becomes effective May 1st. So whatever we're doing, we're
Rec
gonna be
services.
rec services.
Recreational programming.
Yeah.
Yeah, the preschool component would,
It's the year.
I will find out from their director when their exemption expires, when they will start the approval process. Best case scenario, expiring next year, in which case they can start applying the exemption, as programming here. If it's 2 years, again, it's gonna be. Yes.
Well, they may be able to allow more programming if they hire the right
It
staff,
wouldn't be
because they
Camp
have
Fran,
the-
it would be
yes,
able to-
oh, yeah,
Okay.
it wouldn't, yeah.
Well, it sounds like they want to use our name, Camp Fran.
But they
In the
can't
future.
next year, correct?
But
Because
they
of their
would-
exemption?
Their exempt-
They couldn't change the name of the facility.
Right.
If any, program name, I think is, semantic at that point.
Okay.
But again,
So tomorrow we will have some sort of an answer, because you'll speak with him.
I just sent him an email asking if he could explore with his team the potential to expand their, enrollment numbers and give me an estimated timeline for that ASAP, so I'll hear something next day or so.
And the mayor did say he'd be there.
He'll be there tomorrow.
You know, so, as far as the communication stuff, I'm sorry, I mean, the biggest thing I've ever heard is, watching the government work is like watching sausage be made. In this case, somebody was making sausage and they dropped it on the floor, they didn't tell us they dropped it on the floor, and we found out they did. So hopefully when we're done, the sausage is good.
Antioch has, I mean, like, even just looking online, you can see 30 years back, there's people saying, my kids went there, I mean, it has such a good, I could see why Lindenhurst wants to use their name, to be honest, it's like, I mean, I don't see any marketing on anything for Camp Fran, and the enrollment has always been.
We literally line up out the door.
Yeah,
Freezer
so
runs
like,
out on
I
February
mean,
1st.
it's got a reputation, so I really do. hope that.
My children went there, and my oldest will be 40 next year, so, and my nieces and nephews went there, and they're in their 50s. So it was a wonderful program. It's always been wonderful. And this is heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking.
This does not affect summer camp at this point, or what will happen?
Yes.
That's what I'm checking.
So, again, you ever dealt with the State Department, they're never gonna talk in absolutes, right? Welcome to government, it's hypotheticals. So walking through the Rule 377 exemption code for the school age children, which is children that are enrolled in kindergarten and older, they strongly believe will be approved an exemption to operate that program. What's gonna have to be rolled back and eliminated is the 3 to 5 year old non-enrolled in kindergarten component that we have currently. I guess we could intend to continue with the summer camp. There's some adjustments to the operations that we have to make sure we're compliant with the requirements of the exemption that we have to make some improvements on, but yes.
And that won't matter with our current facilities and safety.
No, it's because when you're granted an exemption, when you have a qualified exemption, all this like 72-page Rule 407 requirements of licensed childcare facilities don't apply. It's a much smaller list that show, first aid kits, emergency preparedness plans, evacuation plan, all that kind of stuff applies. But we're talking a list, 2 pages long versus 70.
Well, at the very least, with all of this discussion going forward, this is a perfect time to really think about our district. And with all of the young families here, they might override what has been, the last 2 times we tried it.
The time has changed.
It was at least 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it was voted down.
Still a lot of young families in here now.
It was right before I got elected or so, and it went down in flames.
Oh, flames.
And then they had a couple of school referendums, fire department referendums that kind of went down in flames, and the fire department passed theirs, the libraries passed theirs, and schools have passed a couple since then, so,
It's gonna get out the young parents, and families to vote.
Yeah, the
Get them out.
momentum is high right now. Yeah.
Years, we want.
Has there been research, have we looked into, okay, if we move forward with the park district, and I think this is a great thing to potentially bring up tomorrow to more families, but the idea of a referendum where we either do it ourselves versus doing it as an area with other communities such as Lindenhurst, or like, I feel like people just ultimately, especially people without kids, they don't want their taxes to go on, so they vote things down, but what are the other implications that people are, what would we need to consider? I know it's its own taxing body, but, Lindenhurst is struggling. Or they can't fill everything either, so does it make the most sense for us to create that same problem for ourselves? What is the best route to potentially go.
And that has not been researched because, and honestly, I don't believe, if I remember the laws correctly on the referendum that did see go, the village cannot promote a referendum. It has to be done by a separate committee using separate private funds. We can't have the village attorney.
That's how it does.
Do any work on it. We can't have the Chad, I like to call him, do any of the work. So it has to be a separate entity running the program there. So we really have not done the look, but
So are you
I think
able-
we've had discussions.
Are you able to give the research behind it though?
As far as,
It's like, you know, what kind of costs that would come up to be to taxpayers and does that change the amount that's being pulled for the village? Because that was a park district operating so much, so that how much of an impact does it have on the taxpayer?
I think it would be very difficult for the village to provide those numbers, right? And when you're talking about creating new government entities, which this would be, right, it really is dependent on the scope of the entity that's created. So I think the best way for folks to try to ballpark that would be to look at comparable communities, size, and this, in the type of facilities we would like to see. And you can look up tax bills and how much they levy. I can tell you just from my conversations with Lindenhurst, most of their operating costs are originate out of their revenues from their program fees. There's a much smaller component that's coming off of the tax bill, right? So you just, trying to estimate what that may be. I'm sure there's folks out there that can do that, or firms out there that can do that, but again, that has to start with the grassroots effort of community members that want to become the park district for Antioch discussion, right? And I'm turning to Sally because there are opportunities to put in by.
And I thought I remembered that when it went up for referendum, there, you voted for your park board at the same time. So there's a lot to research.
In some
My
of this
concern-
online communication, there were comments, the discussion of Parks Department versus Park District, because people don't refer to it properly.
Right.
And so other people would chime in and say things like, well, look at Round Lake, or look at, the grass isn't always greener. So I guess understanding the downside or what arguments or potential issues you might face, maybe it does make more sense and is appealing to kind of have a partnership with an area park district as opposed to trying to
Could be.
implement one ourselves. I just don't have
And I
that.
guess unless you have all the information and look at both options,
Yeah.
we're not gonna know.
Right.
But
My-
it's going forward, we really need to look at that.
My concern
Real quick, sir.
with this referendum would be this.
Good luck, Scott.
We're comparing ourselves to Lindenhurst, which they've had a park rec for a long time. Antioch is starting at phase 0. We don't have a facility which has to be built. We have plenty of parks. We could put shelter houses in, okay? As a senior, my taxes are already far too high to begin with. I would support a referendum with this, but it's gotta be done right. And the numbers have to be precise. They can't be like they did with the fire referendum. That was off to here and there in numbers. People are all coming up with different numbers. This is gonna have to be really researched because it's gonna be very expensive.
Yes, so as a starting point, my assistant that's watching this meeting remotely says that any interested taxpayer can contact the Illinois Park District Association, and they will be able to provide guidance on how to start a grassroots effort, and kind of what that process looks like.
As opposed to opening up a district and charging taxpayer dollars, put in another loophole, be a 503(b)(c) and doing it in organization, kind of like Boy Scouts, and use St. Stephen's or St. Peter's. And it would save taxpayer dollar on that. You got plenty of people here that are more than willing
The fire
to come
department needs
together and do a whole organization. It wouldn't have to just be Antioch. We can include Lindenhurst, more satellite suburbs, and turn it into something bigger.
So relative to the, are you talking in the realm of preschool? Are you like talking? So it all comes down to qualified exemption, right? And religious institutions are exempt.
Correct.
They're allowed
Same
exemption.
campground.
as long as.
Thank Camp Grant.
As long as it's part of the curriculum and involves religious instruction. And so we get down, we come down to the whole separation of church and state issue. Again, if it's a grassroots citizen driven initiative and that's something that originates and you find a church that's willing to do that. Yes, I'm sure there's probably a path forward because it's it's a religious based program, however that works out. But again, the village, my opinion, if Jimmy was here, I don't think we could endorse a specific program that's religious or faith-based.
Correct, but you
So
wouldn't
the
have to
team-
endorse and you would save taxpayer dollars by not doing a referendum.
The teachers are sending the message out, they will be back here. Their suggestion right now is the 12th and the 13th for these These dates.
That's what they came up with.
Okay, so just so people know, and then, like I said, I'm gonna meet with them after this again, and then start communicating with you guys even, daily on this stuff until we know where we stand. Well, now that we can talk to other groups and it's public knowledge and, like I said, we were a little leery to say anything to the Lyndhurst teachers or the school district or anything because the messaging had gotten, skewed online, so. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
One last thing from me, at least, hopefully. I haven't really heard from anybody that I think is on board with the idea of Lyndhurst, to be honest with you, from everybody I've spoken to.
You're talking about for the greater, not just the preschool, you're talking about the grander plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that most people that I've talked to have found pieces of it to make sense, more related to the hotshot stuff and things like that,
Sure.
but not the preschool. So in my opinion, just based on what people I've spoken to, feels like that should be a program that we want to keep here. And obviously we
Which one is the program?
preschool.
Yeah, well,
Preschool is something. Obviously, we know that it's not a possibility right now legally, and understood, and.
Without
we can't do anything about it.
unequivocally, I've said from day one, again, I know it's not in public and this is meetings, like the pool, the summer camp and the preschool. Those are the three things and and events. Those are three things we do
So-
good. The other stuff, we can use some help.
Okay.
That's,
Right, and
that's,
that's fine, that makes sense, right, to team up with somebody who also struggling in those departments to try to pair up and fill those programs, makes total sense. But to take away our preschools or summer camps and stuff like that, that hasn't made any sense from the.
Sure.
moment one of-
and tomorrow night, hopefully.
That was never the plan and it was never relayed that way. It just, that's some of the misinformation that was put out there on social media, so.
Well, yes and no, so I will go back to the whole presentation.
Oh, the one take,
that
yeah.
said that they were going.
I don't know if the whole thing was online. It must have been the whole thing online. And again, that was to be like, hey, we have this concept. I guess it was more presented, hey, this is what we're doing. Okay, like this is some of that high level.
Either way, that was how it was presented.
Okay, and that's why I'm glad to hear.
My point of it is this, is that can we put some resources and time and effort into finding out what it would take to actually operate Camp Crayon within our village? Knowing that it's not something that's gonna happen that quickly and it can't happen for probably even next school season. But can we look at that as a plan going forward? Because that seems to me what most people I've spoken to that are residents in Antioch.
100%. I think that next
long
week.
term, that's, if it happens in 2 years, that's better than it never happened.
And then I think next week when we have a parks director, this is where these conversations like start, okay? And like I said, I think the teachers, they're coming back in here. So you can wait as long, like I said, well, tomorrow night, I have the library room for 2 hours. I don't know if I'll kick it out after 2 hours. But let me do some of the high level stuff that like clear the, what the plan, what the idea was from conception, some of the financial numbers, and then I'm sure it's gonna be a lot about, there's just gonna be about the camp, the summer camp, Camp Cran, and how many people are gonna be using our pool. I already know what it's gonna be. All right, so that's, so those are gonna be the big talking points on that end of it. And I hopefully with David and everybody there, I don't know, told him I wouldn't put him on the spot too much, but we'll have some more people and the trustees will all be there, I think, who could make it, answering questions. Go ahead and then here.
As parents, the experience so far, one of my kids have graduated from Camp Grant. One of them is currently in the PRES program. Whatever the program looks like next year, we don't know that yet. So of course, I'm gonna look as a parent for something else to have as a backup option, but I want that to be my backup option, and whatever Camp Crayon becomes, that should be my first option because of the success I've seen with my older child. How do I ensure that when that option is available, we will be prioritized to keep our children in there because we are all part of this program because our deep belief in its success.
I would say there's gotta be a way for us to make sure that the repeat customers get first crack at, you know, getting in those programs. There's gotta be a way to do that.
We really believe in these teachers and their.
Cause I've stood out there in the morning. I stood there at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know? 10 years ago, yeah.
Oh, my son I went to parent teacher conferences and the first question that was asked is, where did he do preschool? Because the base that he is coming with is solid.
Sure.
And he is miles ahead of children. And he can, I don't know, like, these teachers have put so much into our children and how do you expect us to just like
I'm not expecting that. No, I'm not.
step away?
Yeah, I'm not.
I did just hear back from, the director in Lyndhurst. He will have an answer to me by the end of day tomorrow, so we will communicate that as soon as we can.
If the goal is in the long term, to bring Camp Crayon everything back in, whether it's a park district or park rec, is the village going to start proactively thinking about facilities and up to code?
For
I
sure.
mean, you have a construction manager right now, and I get it, they're not on there for that. But I guarantee if you talk to Fred or John Alenardo over there, they'd probably at least give you an option, and the
Well-
bidders would probably at least start looking at, hey, if you wanna turn that into something, here's a quick idea of what it would cost.
Sure, and we have a facilities plan that we actually have, I try and do like around this time of the year, a quarterly capital meeting, improvement meeting, so that would probably be a good time to have those discussions, like, you know, again, for me, there's, you know, it'll cause a different problem, because next, you know, the Gardens Club and the Women's Club and all the ones that use the senior center now would be like, well, where do we go? But that seems to make the most sense, like in the immediate plan, because it's big enough to accommodate probably everybody, under whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, I never really liked any of our camps where you're just pulling up to where the park district building is, and a bunch of kids like sitting out there on the curb with bouncy balls flying in the street. I think we can do better than that. Okay, so, you know, that's part of this whole process.
Also thinking ahead for camps, the 3 to 5-year-old camp should be planned at this point, that's not gonna be an option for the summer.
I'm sorry.
For the Sunshine City Camp, should we assume that that's not an option right now?
Yes, ma'am.
So I can start.
And I have to find out what the actual, like what the law is on that, like, I think we've heard that they actually have to have been in kindergarten already, is that enrolled in kindergarten or something like that? Yeah, for some reason, because the parents are involved, the 2-year-old stuff is not affected, right?
The Friday program.
Yeah, because the parents are there.
We don't have care custody.
So if a child is enrolled in kindergarten, hasn't been there yet, but they're enrolled, they can be part of the summer camp?
I will clarify, but I
Okay.
did ask that question with DCFS. They said they had to have already attended kindergarten, so we're talking kids going into first grade.
Then we're also affected.
So then I would.
Should be Sunshine Camp.
Well, let us find some more of that with we'll ask those of DCFS tomorrow. I wanna make sure that we give you the right answer instead of guessing. So, did anybody get this message yet?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we got it, like 10 minutes ago.
what, Facebook?
No.
Or the
no,
Met?
yeah,
Okay.
Facebook's not yet.
Yeah. So the teachers will be coming back in. Like I said, after we're done here, I'd like to, again, you know, obviously, you know, I've been here for a long time, and everyone's probably gonna either go home and drink a half bottle of wine or go right to bed because you're exhausted. And then I'm gonna meet with the teachers and see what we can discuss, you know, for them. I'm gonna work, whether they work for us or Lyndhurst or somewhere. I'm gonna suggest that we start working with the resources that we may have to at least get that background stuff done as soon as possible for them, no matter how this shakes out, so we can start checking those boxes and helping them too. Like I said, we do background checks, but there's a different level that has to be done, I guess, through DCFS. We have I think maybe, I don't know what it is, but we have some information from Lyndhurst that they have a way to do it within like 24 to 48 hours, so that will be helpful for us. Oh, yep.
Who should we direct, like if we have, parent friends whose kids are in a school, if they have questions, like the message was posted and there's already people asking,
Sure.
like, what's going on, because they're not here.
It's not Kelly, really. Parks,
Or pretty little, well.
yeah, Jim Moran, yeah. Who's gonna be the?
Why don't, this might be the easiest, and she's probably listening and is gonna hate me for saying this, but why don't they call Rachel? And then leave a message and then we'll route it to the appropriate staff member.
Okay, so if you have a question, she gets my email as well. So my email is sgartner, it's GARTNER @antioch.il.gov. And the main number is 847-395-1000. If you hit 0, you'll get reception, and then she'll take those messages.
Yeah, she's not happy with me, but
All right.
she'll go right.
Yeah, yeah. She sees my emails too.
Just one suggestion, I guess. So one part of just the original presentation that I think happened at the January 15th meeting. Some of the things that were kind of all got lumped into this was about hot shots and programs far beyond the preschool.
Sure.
I think asking for community input might be beneficial into the types of programs they would like to see here locally. Because I do think we need to do a little bit more research. I feel like the message was our enrollment is down, we have to cancel programs. And I think there's known that there's maybe not the best quality of all the programs, but there are other things out there, what people want to see for their kids, what people want here. And I think that would really help the message of we want to be transparent.
Well, I think when the new director comes in, I'll do another town hall type meeting with her or him there, and hear these concerns or questions, and again, take those and say, like I said, when I came in here as mayor, I was hoping that at that time our parks department would figure out, like, okay, we have a Saturday morning basketball league that your kids can put in, and the dad's coach, and the hockey league where everybody goes to. But and again, for several reasons, including not being able to work out some of the price structure with the schools and lack of facilities, that never happened. So
there's like really, really great soccer programs out there that we don't need a facility necessarily that come very like highly credited. There are other things out there that we could bring in that might have a better turnout.
Sure, and and again, a lot of these now are, as you know, clubs and third parties.
Yeah.
And again, they use our Vikings, baseball, the softball.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe a lacrosse team now, flag football. Those are the ones that are using our facilities, but those are all third parties, and we gladly welcome the expansion of that.
Yeah.
So.
I just think we'd have more success with enrollment.
Sure.
So that we're not,
I agree.
Yeah, I think the mayor's got a good idea. Once we get a new director, have another meeting to discuss this, because I think some of our past staff may have just said, oh, look, hot shots. Let's throw everything they got in our catalog. We can say we got all these programs, and that
I will tell you,
percent failure rate on the
and doing things just because that's the way we've always done it is usually the worst answer. Okay, so usually so say any of these programs, like, oh, well, that's the way it's always been done. That's not you. That's the easy way out. So
so hire the person that doesn't have that.
yeah, okay. We will work towards that. And that's why the people you're seeing now don't have that mentality. Okay, they may wish they never said yes to me for these jobs, but yeah. All right. Well, anything else? Oh yeah. Question.
Before we conclude, I just want to say thank you for the conversation and the openness and the communication, the honesty, the transparency. Honestly, I think that's what we were the most frustrated about, and this has extremely helped. It's obviously not the outcome any of us came here for, nor we want, but I would just say thank you for that open.
Oh, I appreciate it. I mean, I literally almost got hit by a car in front of here today, and that was the best part of my day today. That's how much I was looking forward to it.
I just got a question via text. And this is from a parent. can the teachers put together learning packets, bags with activities and letters and such that the kids will miss? So when we can continue working, where they let off at home. Since they are still being paid, it would be similar to what they did with e-learning, where they put together some things for us to do with our kids. Maybe record, calendar, the time, a story, read aloud, and send it to us so we can do this with our kids. Or our kids could watch them do it, e-learning wise, for a while, rather than just cut it off and have the teachers completely cold turkey.
I think that, I mean, speaking as a parent, that would be so hard because the curriculum that they do is play-based, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just like, even as a parent, like, I don't know, I mean.
My kid won't listen to me.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah, my kid, has everybody signed off on this so far?
My youngest is 18.
Has everybody signed off?
We're still getting there.
You on there? Yeah, well, I'm gonna meet with you for COVID. So why don't, you let me meet with the teachers for a little bit, so, we're not here till midnight, and then, like I said, you will see communication, consistently on this, I promise you, okay? I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion
Second.
made, second, all in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? All right, meeting adjourned at
Yeah.